Okay, and we have a member coming in here, signing in over there, Dixie, and so we'll go ahead with the agenda here. So under the consent items, we have the agenda before you, and we also have the minutes. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to look at those. Are there any changes or corrections to either the agenda or the minutes, things that need to be included?
I move that we set the minutes. I second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Thank you. So both the agenda and minutes are taken care of on the consent items. Are there public comments that for things that are not on the agenda? Anybody? Doesn't look like it, does it? Okay. Yes.
I had a friend from Calhan, and Tessa came out to the senior dinner that they have out at Ellicott. And it was very good. They did a lot of presentation as to say what they do to help the people out there. So the word is getting out that we need more help.
That's good.
And they did come and talk to the seniors, which was very good.
So they were invited by somebody out there?
Me.
By you? That's great. Good work. Good work.
And the senior, they have the luncheon for the seniors out there once a month.
Right.
Basically, all your schools do that for the seniors, whether it's lunch, dinner, whichever. And then they have special ones. And then if I get people coming out there and letting you know, I mean, I pass out a lot of yellow books because that's the only way I have in
Right.
the contact because it's such a vast area. But, yeah, it was very interesting, and they took, they had a lot of papers and stuff to give them to where they could go and what they could do. But it was very nice, and I really do appreciate it.
Okay, just a quick comment on that would be it's very nice that you've done that, and I think that's the type of thing that each of us should be considering. You know, if we hear a good presentation, we come across a particular organization that you think might have relevance for the area that you live in and the people that you deal with, please invite them out. I mean, that's another way of getting the word out. There are a lot of things, you know, as we'll find out, there's a lot of things that are put together as pamphlets and materials and stuff like that. We try to get the information out on various media, but word of mouth and personal invites really make a big difference. So just an encouragement.
Senior abuse and stuff, a lot more than what you think
Right.
out there. I mean, like I say, they're so far apart, and you don't know somebody or somebody wants to help you.
Yeah. And there is a reluctance on the part of seniors sometimes to invite help or to invite people into their problems.
Very true.
Right.
Especially out there.
Okay, so any other public comments? All right, we'll move to the next item on the agenda then, the special presentation. This will be from Angie Velwald.
Is that right?
Perfect. Better Business Bureau of Southern Colorado on senior scams. I think so. That'd be great, yeah. And just push the button there, the white button on the microphone.
Testing. I do apologize for my cold. I'm on the better side of it, but everybody at the BBB has been passing it around. So if you can't hear me or if I can't hear you, just wave your hand and holler at me. I appreciate Carrie inviting me. We're so excited about what you all are doing here. It's amazing. For years, the BBB has helped seniors, and believe it or not, they're probably 70% of our complaints and things that we deal with. And we always felt like, what can we really do to help seniors? You know, sure, they can come and complain, and having been at the BBB for 7 years, I've seen some very heartbreaking situations. It would just break your heart if you saw how some of these seniors are taken advantage of. And in their mind, they've heard of us since we've been around since 1912. They know, they just come to us. And they walk in our door, and they're usually crying. Usually the wife is crying, the husband's helping her. Walk in the door, and there's only so much we can do. We're the Better Business Bureau. We're not a government agency. There's only so much we can do. We try to direct them to you guys or to where they need to go. But over the years, and I'm now in the senior realm, so I'm like, we need to do something. And we have the best CEO, Jonathan. He's like, what can we do? So out of all the BBBs in the country, we are the first BBB in the whole United States of America to come up with this. And it's an age-friendly certification for a business. And I'm the person that goes out to the business and certifies them. And one of the main things is they have to have a picture ID on them. You guys would be shocked at all the people going into homes that don't even have ID on them. No wonder we have the problems we do. So we started this in January. We kicked it off. We already have 64 businesses that are certified, and it's a special certification you have to go through. We make sure that if it is a facility, that the senior can get in there. They're comfortable there. There's handicapped restrooms, that everything is set up for them. We also make sure of the picture ID. We make sure that you read the contract to them if they can't read it. Would you believe, I cannot believe all the small print on these contracts. It just blows me away. I mean, I use reading glasses, so I can't imagine being 80 and trying to figure out what that contract was saying. Plus, you grew up in a different generation where words were different. Everything was approached differently. You trusted people. A handshake was good. Not anymore. I know we want to feel like Colorado is a safe state, but if you'd see some of the anguished people we see come in, you realize this is not. Every place in the country anymore has been inundated with these scams, ways to get money from seniors. We make sure that if the senior person, when this company is certified, they have to agree to Silver Key senior practices, which means that if they're sitting talking with a senior and they notice something's wrong, something's just not quite right, they don't seem like they're understanding, that they ask them to call a family member, or is there somebody they can email, a friend, someone they can let know you're spending $10,000 with them. It's a great system. I'm so excited that we're doing this. So be sure, I'm going to hand everybody out these. When you go back to your places where you live and work, take a poster. I've got a whole bunch of these I'm going to hand out. Hand them out to seniors. The back of these talk about the purpose of seniors asking for this sign. We need them to start asking for this to make sure that they're safe. It's been so exciting to be a part of this because of all the scams. We see scams with, I just talked to somebody today that had a scam. Somebody called her about the IRS. That is still going around, believe it or not. People still believe that. And it isn't just seniors, you guys. I had a grandson that got scammed, and he's 22. I'm like, are you kidding me? Do you not understand? But they're so persuasive on the phone. Anybody in here could be hooked by it. If you'd ever heard them and the way they present it. Another big one we're facing right now is they'll call people and say, you didn't show up for court. You were supposed to be on the jury. And so you're going to be arrested. And as we all know, that you don't get arrested for not serving on the jury. So you can't buy your way out of that. We had a couple come in the other day that had gotten a call that they needed to get 10 credit card things from Walmart to pay off this bill that they supposedly owed. Now, we all would think, I would never do that. But, you know, you've got to remember these people, a lot of people just live in a different world. They can't imagine that people would be that horrible. So it takes all of us. It takes a community to make sure our seniors are safe. And I always tell people that if you don't think it's you, well, just wait, because someday you'll be a senior. I never thought I'd be a senior, but it happens to everybody. So if you're doing now the right thing to protect them, it's only going to protect you someday. This is for you, too, we're doing this, because you'll be a senior someday, too. And it's hard to believe you would fall for stuff like this, but you're going to want a protection in line for you. I'm going to hand out some of these. Any questions on anything that's going on?
Do you think the penalties are stiff enough for the people that take advantage of those weakest people in our society?
They really aren't, but a good example is a roofer we had. This is about almost a year ago when we had all that roofing damage happen. And They were not from here, which we did not get that. They were not accredited through us. But that's why we stress to people, make sure they're accredited, because if they're not accredited and they're from out of state, there's very little anyone can do. We had another couple, another lady that came in, and she had to have her driveway repaved. She paid them up front, $8,500. I mean, never came back. And honestly, there's nothing we can really do to help them. I wish there was a way, but, you know, I don't know whether the states need to be more coordinated with each other in nailing people like that. But that's, if they were accredited, we could have held them accountable. Because we could have said, okay, you're going to an F, which will impact your business by millions of dollars. But when they're not accredited, there's really nothing we can do. And it's very heartbreaking. I mean, if we could put a camera in our office and you all could see it, there'd be an uprising in this city for our seniors. Because it's heartbreaking.
How many really do call in to see if they are?
We have a lot of seniors that actually come in. They come in the door. Because we do have some that call. A lot of them come in and they want us to do something. And as we know, the BBB is not a government agency, so we really don't have the power to call the police in. There's been a couple times we have had the police come and try to help them. We are sending them out to you guys in your departments and where they need help the best that we can. But I would say, probably out of all, I would say at least 70% of our complaints are from seniors. And that's kind of scary, because people like you and me, will go to the store, I'd go to the store and say, hey, what in the world? What's going on here? But seniors, they're intimidated a little bit, and they're afraid to go do that. And usually their family members live in another state, or sometimes they're not even talking to their family members.
Well, yeah, I'm a senior, but, you know, it's just like your driveway thing. I had a guy with a truck, he says, I have this extra truck full of, was it the asphalt?
Oh, yes.
Okay, he comes barreling up there, he says, you need this, and you have to have your driveway done. I said, really? I says, I have road base on that, why would I want to put asphalt?
Yeah,
He looked at me and I says, what about no, don't you understand?
yeah, really. But, you know, a lot of seniors are
Yes, he did.
intimidated, and they're afraid to do that. When we had this big hail thing happen last August, we had to re-roof the whole house and shop. It all had metal roofs and all had to be re-roofed. I had 3 different roofers with out-of-state plates on their trucks with no ID on them, didn't even have a driver's license supposedly, trying to get my business. So can you imagine if I'd been a senior that was, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just.
I'm sorry I'm so patient.
No, I was just finishing, please finish your sentence though. One of the things I think that can be a problem that contributes to this though is, and this is just from my experience having been in Mountain Shadows and going through all the Waldo Canyon fire insurance and the horrible situation with that. Part of the problem is that when there is some sort of a localized sort of disaster, you know, like the hailstorms that were so bad on the east side of town, it takes so long for normal, appropriate, you know, insurance to finally kick in that you've got people waiting 6-7 months who still have the windows not repaired. And so I do think there's that fear that people are like, oh, well, they're here. Oh, they came to my house. Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah.
And I do think that is part of it. That's the fear. Because I know several friends who were on the east side and just with all the windows in their house got broken out.
Yep.
And so you're in such a panic, you don't know what you're going to do. And when someone comes up and says, oh, well, we're right here, it seems like it is. And that's why they're taking advantage of it. But I do think that's part of the problem. Is that in those sorts of situations, you're just so great that someone's offering to help that you're just ready for it.
Well, and the big thing is and this is why the BBB, we do a lot of marketing stuff. We're trying to get people to look for the BBB logo. Because it's the only, when you think about it, we are the only place that vets a business. Nobody else does. When you want to become accredited with the Better Business Bureau, you have to go through a 2.5-week process. I had someone, it's been a couple of years ago, but they called up, and it was when the fires had all happened. And they wanted to get accredited. They did not have a local phone number. They did not have a local address, but yet they were trying to tell me they were local. I'm like, no, you cannot become accredited. And they're like, we'll pay you double the amount. I'm like, no, it's not about the money. It's about our community being safe. People always say that the BBB, you can pay whatever. That is so not true. I have literally been a witness to that. I have turned people down. I've watched our CEO turn people down. There are a lot of businesses in this town, you guys, that cannot become accredited. They can't.
One other question I have to you. Oh, sorry.
Do you publish that list?
Yes, we do. It's the biggest place is online. Just enter BBB Southern Colorado. It'll pull up all the list of accredited businesses. And we list other businesses that are not accredited, but the ones that are accredited, it always says BBB accredited. On the others, in very clear wording, it used to be in red, I think it still is in red, it says this business is not accredited with the BBB. So, and you know, I don't know what else we can do, you know, other than you guys putting the word out to tell people to check with the BBB. Because these companies are vetted through us. If there's any kind of predatory, felony, anything like that at all, they are not accredited. It isn't even a discussion. We have a question on all the applications. Have you ever been convicted of a felony? And if they say no, and then we do our search and find out they are, they can never become accredited again, ever. So, and we go by their name, not the business. We had this happen a couple of years ago. This one guy in town, a roofer, kept changing the business name.
Right.
And we don't go by the business name, we go by your name. So if you've had issues, it's going to follow you in this town.
How are you getting the word out in other ways besides this to say people like in your county that unless they run into you?
Yeah.
I know.
And then,
We are. We're doing a lot of different marketing things. Our CEO, Jonathan, and Gina are the vice president of marketing at the BBB. They're on radio programs every week. They do a radio program at KVOR. They do another one on KRDO FM, and they talk about it. I'm out. I've been taking a lot of these big posters out to hang up. I gave some to Dave to take out. Just put these up everywhere, and if seniors ask about them, say, this is to make sure you're safe. This is to make sure you're doing business with a good business. Because honestly, I'm the person certifying these people, and I've had to tell several businesses no. That's one thing I love about the BBB. We don't mind saying no, because we're trying to protect all of you. I mean, I'm a mom. I got 3 kids, 8 grandkids, and 2 great-grandchildren. So I see this community as my family. I came here in '71. This is my home. I'll live and die here. So this is my family. So we have to protect each other. We're all responsible to protect each other.
So I was just going to ask you one other question. Have you ever been involved with the Senior Victims Assistance Team? The police department?
I know we've called the police department on a couple of situations to help them, but I don't think we actively are working with them.
Well, I just know that I've actually been in situations where it was a senior who was at risk, and so in your office, if you have someone who's having an emotional
Yes.
situation, and you know that maybe something had happened that maybe could be criminal, the police department has a Senior Victims
Yes.
Assistance Team
Yep.
that actually has people who
Yep.
are on call and will go to the scene of
Yep.
where they're at.
Yep.
I just didn't know if you knew about
We
that.
have,
Maybe
we've
I
called them a
don't
couple
know.
times. Believe it or not, a lot of the seniors don't want to get the police involved, which is, you can't
Well,
really
see,
call
there's
them.
this thing called mandatory reporting now. But anyway, I didn't know if you'd had connection with it, so that's, I just
Yeah.
was checking to see if
Yes.
you had that connection.
Yeah,
Because
we,
that-
we have a couple times.
They can tell them things you can't.
Exactly. I totally
You
agree.
can actually pass that to the appropriate people, but they're
Yep.
not a police officer,
Yeah.
which makes it different because then it's just another senior who is a volunteer.
Yep.
And then they feel like this is a safe and not as stressful a situation because it's not the policeman or, you know,
Yep.
with all of the,
Yeah, we had a police officer, Carrie, wasn't that the officer that came to the The
She
Commission
was
on
from the
Aging?
fire department.
Oh,
We had
okay,
a-
okay.
We had a fire department representative speak to the Commission on Aging. Yeah,
Yeah, that was really interesting.
that was fascinating.
Wendy, what did you call them?
They're the SVAT team.
SVAT.
Senior Victims Assistance.
That's awesome.
And they're volunteers, you said?
They're volunteers.
Very
Some
cool.
of them are former police officers, some of them are not, but they're husbands and wives. A lot of times they do this together as volunteers. Probably should contact.
I'll mention that to our people too, to make sure we know.
Because they're not in uniform. I actually called them once, I actually saw a car accident. And when I pulled over to help the woman, she obviously was rattled, and I just, are you okay? Can I call someone for you? Do you have any family in town? She goes, no, they'll never, they never call me now. And she flipped out. And I was like, okay, and so I'm getting my phone out. And so I specifically asked when I called the police, would you please send out the senior victims team? And they were like, oh, okay. Again, not something that people are aware of, so it's not often
Okay.
they get asked that request. And then the officers were on scene, not the victims team, but the officers came on scene. And he's like, I heard somebody ask for the senior victims team. I'm like, yeah. And he looked at me like I was crazy. And I'm like, here, watch. And he said, so should I call your daughter? And she went off again. And he's like, oh, gotcha. And I'm not making light of the situation, but that's what they're trained for. It's
Awesome.
another senior who's a volunteer. And they're just sweet. So I just didn't know if that was a connection.
No, I will definitely, when I get back to the office, mention it to the girls at the front desk.
Somewhere in my phone, I can pick up the contact.
Yeah, send it to me.
They're in the yellow book.
Oh, there we go. That's much.
They're in the yellow book.
And I'll make sure we have that, but, you
This is another tool in your box.
Totally, exactly. If you guys hear of anything or you want us to participate in any way, please let me know. Just call the BBB, ask for Angie. I'm the only Angie there, and we'll figure out a way to get you connected or help you help us. Because we're all trying to keep this community safe, which I think is awesome, but we need each other. And the cool thing with this age friendly is I'm finding out that it isn't just for seniors, it's actually helping handicapped people too. So it's like it's been amazing on all ends because we're helping all different kinds of people.
Right, on your scams, okay? Your numbers, like I have a 202, and then I had one out of the IRS thing, was a 580. You know, they're all over, and they change the numbers, and they don't. So I calls this friend of mine, which is a city policeman, and I says, they're calling me again. He says, just hang up on them, because if you turn it in, they can't trace the call.
Nope.
And this is the problem with these scams and stuff. They could be overseas, but they've got to where they can put it on any area that there is. So,
Well, they're trying everything they can because there's no rules in their mind, and they
That's
want
true.
what you have to
That's
take
true.
from you.
so it doesn't do you, I mean, you can turn it in and saying, well, I got the call, but they cannot do anything with it because of the phones and the way they're using them.
Yep.
And not only city, sheriffs, I have friends sheriffs,
Yep.
the city and state, and they just can't trace it.
Nope. Well, now the big thing is it's hard for us in determining whether a company's really local because you can buy a 719. So basically, you can be living anywhere and have a 719 area code. So it looks like it's local, and it's not at all local.
That's true, and on your do not call list, you
It doesn't
forget that.
matter.
No.
No.
It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what phone you put on it, they still are doing it.
Which is why all of us need to be really aware to help seniors and everybody, help each other. Because if we don't help each other, as a society, we're in trouble. If we can't, and to me, the biggest thing is helping our seniors. Because if we don't help our seniors, they need us the most right now. They've given us all this of America and everything we are and have, and now they're getting older, they're seniors. We need to be there for them. So I'm excited that the BBB is doing this. I think it's awesome.
How associated are you with, I'm sure the Better Business Bureau is statewide,
It's national, and even, there's one, there's several, there's two in Canada, a couple in Canada, there's one in Mexico. They have different rules than we do, but all the BBBs in America, in the United States, are a franchise. And so we are controlled and owned by our board. So the board of 18 members, and they're all different, they have to own a business. So they own a business, and they're on our board. So they know what it takes to run a small business, because for local, we are a small business. We have 18 employees. We also have a location in Pueblo. Pueblo gets a lot of complaints coming in there. We have an office there. So we're owned locally by the board. And we're all connected in that we have rules and regulations we have to follow. Years ago, BBB in California, they lost their BBB accreditation because they were getting people accredited like in 24 hours. Well, the rules of the BBB, you have to vet them. You have to put them through an investigation process.
Right.
Doesn't matter what they pay.
So how does, just restricting it to Colorado right now, do all the BBBs,
They do not. We're the only ones that do. Pueblo is not even an age-friendly city right now. We're an age-friendly city that's been designated by the mayor of their city, because John Suthers designated us as an age-friendly. We were working with AARP. And because of our designation, we could do this. So another city has got to have that same designation as an age-friendly city. Certain things about buses, different things for seniors, different ways. I mean, believe it or not, just since we've gotten involved with this, I can't believe all the senior stuff going on in our town. It is amazing. Every time I come to these meetings, I just sit there and go, wow, we did not know this all was happening.
So this does not apply outside of the city of Colorado?
No, it does not. Not right now. We have BBBs, we had, I think, 12 in the last few months, calling us, asking Jonathan about the logo. We designed everything ourselves, how we're doing it, and we are helping other BBBs to do this so they can get this certification process going too. So we're kind of like the test market with it, which I think is very
are
cool.
they aware of it? So
A lot of them
they
are.
can model it?
Yes. Yep, at different events that Jonathan, our CEO, has gone to nationally, he's talked about it. And so they're all starting to become very aware of it. I think we're going to see, the statistics for this city is unreal. It's like, I think by 2025, something like that, there's going to be like 1 in 3 people will be a senior. It's going to be huge in this community. We baby boomers, we took the world by storm in the 40s and 50s, and we're going to keep on doing it. So we're going to impact the way seniors are dealt with, the way senior homes present themselves. We're going to impact everything.
Do you have a hotline that someone can make?
We do, for seniors? We do not, but we're talking about that right now. That was a conversation last week. We'd like to get something set up like that. Or at least have something, even if they came to us and called and it sent them to one of you guys or something else. We would love to see something like that happen. The problem is we have to decide if their complaint is like a police complaint, or it's a business complaint, or just what it is before we send them another direction. I need to get moved because you guys need.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I think it's been very informative and very much needed. I guess I would, just a comment or an observation would be that it really shows the strength of the senior organizations. This is partnered with Innovations in Aging. So this is where Innovations has done something, has reached out, pulled in another part to better serve seniors in the area. The other thing I throw out too is that it's incumbent upon each of us to try to figure, okay, so where would we put these signs to get more people to aware of it? I'm thinking in my area up in the Monument Tri-Lakes area, there are 2 different coffee shops where you have groups of seniors coming in, different types of the day, men early, women a little bit later. There are bridge groups or all those types of things. Having those signs there might be a way to begin to get the information out in a different venue at the same time. I think each of the communities have various meetings, whether it's a women's club, whether it's, it could be a Kiwanis, it could be Rotary, whatever it is. Again, that's the type thing where Angie or somebody from BBB make a 10-minute presentation.
Totally.
You get the word out much more effectively and in a different venue, if you will, rather than the standard, here's what, if you're a senior, you go to these places to get your senior information. I think it's really important to get the information out.
Thank you.
So
It
thank
is.
you very much for
Does
coming. I
anybody
appreciate
want a
that.
poster to put up somewhere? And please feel free to just put them up and let's get these seniors safe and checking on them.
And I think Angie's contact information will be on the, in the minutes then next time? Carrie, is that right? Her contact information?
No, her contact information won't be in the minutes, but
Okay.
I can certainly distribute it.
That would be,
Yep,
I think that would be
I'd be glad to.
helpful. Everybody could have that, add to their Rolodex or whatever.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now we're moving to item 5 on the agenda, information items and provider presentations. And the first one will be a young lady that has been here before to talk about the Colorado Legal Services. And it ties in very nicely with BBB.
Yes, it does. Let's see, I had a PowerPoint. There it is. Thank you.
It's a miracle.
I'm impressed. My name is Sarah Lipka. I am the managing attorney for the Colorado Springs office of Colorado Legal Services. I've been the manager for about 2 years now. I've been with Colorado Legal Services since 2008. I've met most of you. Nice to see you again. I've done a lot of domestic violence family law in the past. I worked on a foreclosure grant for a couple of years. I've practiced in both Denver and in more rural areas here. I am from the Springs. I was born here. I grew up in Monument, so it's nice to be home. Before I talk about legal services, so nice to hear from the Better Business Bureau. I love what you do. It's wonderful. And I go to your website a lot. It's great. There are some state and federal agencies, that you can refer people to if you do have problems, in addition to the Better Business Bureau. There is the Federal Trade Commission. They have a great website. They have a lot of handouts that you can print from their website about consumer protection issues, so I like their website a lot. Then a couple of years ago, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau was established. That's also a federal agency that works really closely with the Federal Trade Commission. And they also do a lot of work to protect consumers and seniors from scams. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. So if you have somebody that's been a victim of one of the phone scams, for example, and they sent money to Russia or some other country by mistake, you can report them federally to these two agencies, and they will investigate it and, if possible, prosecute. They like to keep track so that they can warn people if they notice a trend about a new scam. I always encourage people to report there. You can also refer people to the Colorado Attorney General's office. They also do the same thing. They can prosecute, and they keep an eye out for patterns. So the Colorado Attorney General's office will not be able to help people get their money back usually, but they can go after people to prosecute if necessary. Yes?
I just also wanted to mention along those lines that most banks train their staff in terms of keeping an eye out for potential scams.
Yeah.
And locally, our Adult Protective Services Unit and Colorado Springs Police Department do training with banks around them recognizing patterns of withdrawals, someone coming in with a senior to make a withdrawal, those kinds of things. And they'll reach out then to law enforcement or APS and share their concerns so that can be looked into.
Yes.
And they'll try and work with that senior to say, have you contacted your daughter and talked to her? I mean, just those kinds of things to intervene. So.
That's great. Yeah, and I have noticed some banks catching scams, which has been a relief for us,
Sorry, is that Attorney General's program, is that still Elder Watch?
They have Elder Watch, yes, but then you can also report different areas.
Elder Watch, I know, is a joint venture between the Attorney General's office and AARP, I believe.
Yeah. And then I'm sure you all know about DORA. They're wonderful, and they regulate a lot of different agencies. I love them. So I always go to the DORA website if I have a complaint. And then there's Colorado Legal Services. We do a lot of consumer work. So unfortunately, a lot of times it's either criminal, and we would refer people to make a report, or you can try to go to small claims court if it's not a lot of money and get your money back. It's difficult for people to figure out the right person to serve if it's a business you're going after. We can try to help look that up for people, but sometimes the remedy is small claims court, which can be difficult, but small claims court is designed for people without an attorney. So, but we also do a lot of consumer work at Legal Services. Let's see. So, Colorado Legal Services, we're a private nonprofit corporation, 501c3. Here's our mission statement: to provide meaningful access to high-quality civil legal services in the pursuit of justice for low-income persons and members of vulnerable populations throughout Colorado. I love our mission statement. I have it on my bulletin board, and I think even our mission statement points out that we try to help as many members of vulnerable populations as we can. But that we can't, help everybody because there are only 50 attorneys statewide and about 32 paralegals. We have 13 different offices. I think I have a map next. These are where, if you can see the stars, this is where our offices are. So the Colorado Springs office serves El Paso and Teller County. We also do, I think for this grant, is it Park? That's Paso, Teller, Park. And then we also help Lincoln County. We share with some other offices, Fremont County, Chaffee, Custer, and Lake County. In my office, there are 4 staff attorneys right now. We are interviewing to bring in a grant attorney to do family law. I'm really excited about that. We also just got a grant to hopefully bring in another attorney to do housing, landlord-tenant, because there's a big need for that. And then a paralegal. We have 2 paralegals right now. We are interviewing for a 3rd paralegal for a grant position who would do half of their time would be family law for domestic violence victims, and the other half would be to work with a tax attorney in our Denver office for a tax clinic that we have set up. We are also very fortunate to have about 6 volunteer attorneys, most of them are retired, who come in 1 or 2 days a week and donate a lot of their time. About half of the hours that we provide to seniors under this grant come from volunteer attorneys. And of course, there is a cost associated with having volunteer attorneys. We give them an office, a phone, a computer. I send them to trainings. They print, so software, technology. So the funding really helps. And 2 of the volunteer attorneys are doing basic estate planning, mostly for seniors, which is, I think it's been a big need that we've been able to address in the community. One of the volunteers that does estate planning actually has a practice, an active law practice, but she's donated 1 day a week of her time to come into our office. And the other estate planning attorney comes in twice a week. He's retired, but he's done a lot of work. We have another volunteer who's been with us about 8 years, and he's very good at consumer, landlord-tenant, and public benefits work. With our staff attorneys, there's me. About half my time is spent on management, and the other half I mostly do family law. There's another attorney that's been practicing about 10 years, and he's focusing on consumer, foreclosure defense, landlord-tenant, debt collection defense for the consumer. And then our 2 other attorneys right now primarily do family law, but they also do landlord-tenant and consumer as necessary. One of our paralegals does unemployment hearings. So we do civil work. Let's see here.
So this is just your estate planning?
The estate planning, we have 2 volunteers that do estate planning, and that what they do is they meet with the clients and learn about what they want. They have them fill out some paperwork where they write down what they want, and then we draft up the forms. So usually a will, maybe a medical power of attorney, or a power of attorney that would take effect when somebody is unable to make those decisions for themselves. Very careful about doing too many powers of attorney because they can be abused very easily. So we limit the scope of the power of attorney, and we only do it when we feel comfortable. And even then, we proceed very cautiously. But I think that the wills are helpful, and creating the medical powers of attorney gives people a lot of relief. I think it also prevents elder abuse, because if you can say, look, I have a will, it's all set, then the family maybe won't try to get you to put your grandkid's name on the title to the house or something, which is never good. I wouldn't recommend doing that, usually.
It has to do with taxes.
What's that?
It has to do with taxes.
Sometimes it's taxes. Sometimes people think, oh,
They do that.
yeah, I know. But some people think that the probate system is really difficult and they don't want to make their family have to go through it. Then they'll add their kids to the title to the house, and then it's all these problems. What if you fall behind on your mortgage and then you need to do a loan modification? But you can't because you have all these people listed on your deed to your house. That's a problem. Or what if you add your son to your house and then your son says, you know what, I think you need to go to a nursing home and I'll just take over the house and sell it. Yeah.
Money.
So I'm glad that we can kind of prevent those things from happening by setting up the estate plan the correct way. Yeah.
Or you need to go to nursing home and it's like, oh, sorry, Medicaid says that's a transfer without fair
Right.
consideration, so.
Exactly.
Cheryl's over here going, I know.
I know. So maybe we're preventing some things like that. Colorado Legal Services has been in Colorado since 1925 in one form or another. In 1999, 3 agencies merged to form Colorado Legal Services, so we are now a statewide agency. We're a nonprofit. We get lots of different types of funding. We have like 60 different funding sources. We get federal funding and state funding, various grants. We have a board that has attorneys on it, and then we also have folks that will qualify financially for our services. Oops, I talked about this slide. The Legal Services Corporation is our largest funder. That's federal. And then the Legal Aid Foundation is our fundraising arm for Colorado Legal Services. 85% of our resources goes directly to services, which I think is pretty good.
Sarah, just a quick question would be
Yeah.
on the budget. What percent, I mean, you're local here, right? And you had the 4 attorneys or whatever it is out of the total
Yes.
for Colorado. What is the budget here? And what percentage is really coming from AAA to support?
Right. Well, I was looking at that. We right now the AAA. I think last year you guys gave us about 60,000, and this year you've approved us for 40,000. We definitely receive more money from our statewide, from the Legal Services Corporation, and by being a part of a statewide organization, than we generate from our local grants. So we're very fortunate in that respect.
So do you have a budget for the local office here?
Yeah, we have a budget for the local office. I can't remember.
Roughly.
Roughly, it was over $100,000. Our rent is the second highest for an office in the state because our population in El Paso is always about tied with the population in Denver. Our Denver office is our largest office, but they serve the whole metro area. So their population is a couple million people, and then the population that we serve here with all the counties is about 735,000. Most of our clients, if they're not seniors, they have to qualify financially. They have to be between 125 to 200% of the federal poverty guidelines. With this grant, we do not exclude people based on their income or their assets, but we do target low-income seniors, and we do spend more money on providing assistance to seniors in our office than you guys give us money for. I did a lot of counting on that with our on-site, and I understand that money's short, and we're worried federally. We're all worried federally, but I can't cut services because it took a while to create these volunteer programs. The volunteers are dedicated. I think it's very helpful to the community. When we provide assistance, it prevents other expenses in the community. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
So the types of law that we do civil. We don't do criminal. About more than half of the people that come to us need help with family law. So because there's such a high need, we really focus on helping people that are victims of domestic violence, often with joint children. We really try everything we can to help seniors, people who have a disability that would make it hard for them to represent themselves in court, people who don't speak English as a primary language. I think the second highest area in demand is landlord-tenant law. And then we also do health and elder, public benefits, unemployment. We don't have a lot of migrant work in the Springs office. That's more rural offices. And then utilities and consumer. So a lot of our family law clients are seniors. I had one, I didn't put her in the slideshow, but I was thinking about her this morning, a grandma who had obtained guardianship with her husband over her grandchildren years ago. There was a lot of really severe domestic violence, controlling behavior towards her, and inappropriate behavior towards the grandchildren with her husband. And I represented her in a civil protection order. I think it took 2 days, and she did obtain a civil protection order against her husband, and now I'm representing her in her divorce and in a separate action so that she can have custody of her grandchildren. So I think that hopefully I can help her with her grandchildren so that they're no longer exposed to this violent behavior, controlling behavior, inappropriate behavior, and they can grow up in a healthy environment. And that senior doesn't speak English, so she was very confused. So I'm glad that I'm helping her with that. There are different levels of service that we provide. We can't represent everybody that comes to us. Because we can't represent everybody, we really try to take the very challenging cases for full representation. If there's a case that might be easier legally, we will refer them out either to volunteer attorneys or to the El Paso County Pro Bono Project. They come to our meetings on a weekly basis, and we try to give them the cases that might work better for a volunteer, maybe not burn the volunteer out, and then we take the hard cases. Yes?
Does the pro bono include criminal?
No.
No, so there's no situation in which you all are involved with elder abuse on a criminal basis?
Well, so if there's a criminal case, and so if somebody's charged criminally and they're low income, then the public defender's office would represent them.
I see.
If somebody is a victim of elder abuse, then we would suggest that they contact the DA's office or the division of the police department that we were talking about earlier for assistance.
Okay.
If somebody would like to sue their family for financial abuse, we have a list of volunteer attorneys that we can call up to see if they would do it. The probate section of the bar is really good here. We're fortunate. They volunteer a lot. So I have some lawyers that I call and say, hey, if we have a case where there's no private attorney that would take the case, and it's a case that we should take, we would consider it if we had the resources.
I see.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. If we cannot provide full representation, we try to at least give advice to folks or provide brief services, like drafting the initial paperwork for a case. And then we always make appropriate referrals. So it's one of the reasons I really enjoy this grant is it's allowed me to get to know a lot of the other nonprofits that we work with so we can share clients an issue spot, and I've set up referral, more formal ways to refer cases back and forth with some of the agencies that we work with a lot, so that it's easier for people to apply for our services. If you guys notice something, you can send them over to us, and you can always call me too. Here's some examples of some cases in the last year. Last time I came, I had different cases on these slides, so I just yesterday thought of a couple more than we did since I've been here last time. This is an example of the estate planning folks that come in. I do like to sit in on there's a very formal procedure for signing all of your wills and estate plans if you guys have done that. And I like to sit in on those because people are so relieved when they finally have their will done and they know what to do. They know they can, how to make sure that what they want is going to happen. So those are, I think, very helpful. We had another case recently where there's a gentleman who had his daughter and his granddaughter living with him. He raised his granddaughter with and helped his daughter. I'm sure you all know folks like this. The father was not involved, and the mom passed away very suddenly, leaving behind a preteen child. And he wanted to, keep the granddaughter in his home because that's where she's grown up her whole life, and didn't want to change things too much for her. So we represented him and obtained a guardianship so that now she can stay with him, and also he can talk to the school. She's having some hard time in school, you can imagine, after losing her mom. But now he has the authority to talk to the counselors and also take her to doctor appointments as necessary. So I'm glad that we were able to do that. This was a housing case. We have a lot of seniors that have problems in landlord-tenant, both private and public. Sometimes there's more remedies available if somebody has public housing, but sometimes there's something we can do if there's private housing as well. We had a client who, a low-income minority disabled senior, who had Section 8. She had a voucher for Section 8 housing, which I'm sure you guys all know means that HUD paid the majority of her rent. The landlord was greedy and said, you need to pay me more. We're going to sign a different contract on the side saying you're going to pay me additionally on top of that, which is not allowed, not allowed. Then, of course, she couldn't afford to pay that additional rent. Then the landlord decided that he would evict her for not paying this side agreement. Fortunately, she came to Colorado Legal Services, and we knew the rules that said that you're not allowed to do this. We represented her in the eviction. The landlord had a lawyer. When we explained to the landlord how bad this was, he withdrew the eviction, and he actually paid the client $500. So I'm really glad that we're getting another attorney to do landlord-tenant because sometimes there is a defense. I see a lot of cases where there's a defense. But if you're pro se, you don't know what the law is. And even if you did, it's hard to explain it. Most of the time when you go to the county court where the evictions are taking place, all the lawyers are either legal services or for the landlord. Because if you're getting evicted, you probably can't afford a lawyer. And I've seen a lot of cases where there's a defense and you need a lawyer to explain it. So I'm glad that we're able to do that. I think that makes a difference. It keeps people in their homes. So I brought my card. I'll just pass it around. If anyone ever has any questions, feel free to give me a call. Like I said, I enjoy this grant and working with all of you.
How many attorneys are salaried?
In my office, including myself, there are 4 attorneys. We are interviewing for a 5th, and we just yesterday received notice that we will have a 6th. As soon as we can find that person and hire them on. Statewide, there are about 50 attorneys. So there are 50 Colorado Legal Services attorneys in Colorado and about 800,000 people that would qualify financially, low income. That does not include, of course, the seniors that we represent under this grant who may be over those income guidelines. And it also doesn't count domestic violence victims. If a domestic violence victim does not have access to income or assets because of financial control, we don't count the spouse's income and assets against that client.
Do you have any income coming in from like co-payments or people who are not qualified for the services? I mean, how do you pay for your salaried?
Our salary, you guys give us some money, thank you. And then the Legal Services Corporation grant is our largest source of funding. We get some state grants.
Everything's from grants.
Grants, and then the Legal Aid Foundation fundraises. And a large percentage of the funds that the Legal Aid Foundation raises goes to Colorado Legal Services. They also give some smaller amounts to other nonprofits. Because we receive federal funding, there are some restrictions on the cases that we take. You know, we don't do fee-generating cases unless there's no one else that will do it and we have proof that no one will do it. So we won't do a case where, like if there's a car accident, we'll say, why don't you go hire a private attorney and they can collect their fee when they win their case. Do those cases. We do the cases where no one will take it. Like if somebody's food stamps are shut off, then they're not going to be able to hire a lawyer to do the public benefits appeal or that hearing, and so those are the cases that we do. Yes?
How many clients do you get around the counties, you know, as you slice it up?
Right. Oh, I should have looked it up for you. So our grant for last year said we were supposed to provide a service to about 530 seniors. Mm-hmm. I think we met that. We might have exceeded it. Most of the seniors that we help are in El Paso County.
El Paso. Okay.
Because the population is higher here.
Uh-huh.
But we do outreach to the more rural areas so that we're sure that we can still reach those folks. We go to Cripple Creek. We go to the Aspen Mine Center on a monthly basis.
Uh-huh.
We go to Teller County, Fountain. We go to the Hancock Senior Center. We're actually working on giving a presentation at Tri-Lakes Cares about landlord-tenant. I have one of my volunteers is contacting one of the folks there. And so, yeah.
So I'm wondering if I gave your card to our executive director of our board in Park County, do you deal in Park County?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
We also have, yes, we do serve Park County, and we also have one attorney in our Salida office
Uh-huh.
that we share Park County with. So I'm sure she works in that county too. But yes,
Good.
we do
Okay.
I do
So
see
you-
clients from Park
you
County.
serve seniors there then, too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Sarah, I just wanted to tell you about really a fabulous experience that I had a couple of years ago with you guys, because I just think it goes back to the value of what you guys provide. I had someone who was trying to enroll in my PACE program when I was working with that, and because she was still married, although she'd been separated for like 18 years, she wasn't able to get the benefits because they're always going to look at both spouses' income, and she had no way of contacting him, and it was a very nasty, ugly domestic situation. And for her daughter's safety, so you can guess what was going on, she had no contact with him, and it was so difficult. We couldn't get her services, and I sent her to Teresa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Back in the day, and yes, she was able to finally get the divorce. They were able to go through that whole situation. Yes, she was able to get the benefits, and she was able to get some assistance. But what I was surprised at, and I don't know that maybe people realize, is that the emotional impact for her
Right.
because she had been tied to that man for 18 years.
Oh, my.
And she didn't want to be, had good justification for not being, but it was always that thing that was in the back of her mind that she was still connected to him.
Right.
And even though all these other good things happened, I think more than anything, having that final, I'm no longer involved with him.
Yeah.
It was getting the divorce was for her emotionally, it was so cleansing.
Right.
I was quite surprised by it, but that to me was such a testimony to the fact that it's not just the legal work that you guys provide.
Right.
It's the emotional attachment that people have because of the situation that they're in that also is alleviated. So again, thank you.
Well, thank you
Thanks, Charlie.
for sharing.
Yes.
That's nice. That's good.
I wanted to throw in my 2 cents worth as well. Colorado Legal Services is a unique entity that we deal with in that we give them money, therefore we assess their performance. They are also assessed by Disability Law out of Denver.
Oh, right, yeah.
Who oversees all free legal programs. Is that the best way to describe
Sure,
that?
yeah.
Statewide. So they get scrutinized to death. And on all counts, they usually come up very, very high with their performance. So we're very, very happy with that they're here and for what they do.
Well, thank you so much. I really try to tell my staff all the time that no matter what, we have to do our best to be ethical and do a really good job on our cases and help our clients. Thank you. Appreciate that.
You have
Yes.
people come in, seniors, that have questions about, say they made a will. As to say, at this point, is this actually what I should do, or?
Oh, you mean to review a will? Yeah. I see a lot of folks that maybe they went online and printed something and, or they wrote something like 10 years ago, or there's a will from like another state, and sometimes wills from other states are fine, but yeah, those folks, I definitely send them to our estate planning attorneys.
Okay, do they, I've been told, I don't know, that you can take and write your will as long as you have witnesses and it's notarized.
Okay, so
I'm just asking.
I will give you information, but not advice.
Take that.
But, you can do a holographic will but it's really tricky. This has to be handwritten. If you type it, there are different rules. There are all these really interesting cases about, how is a will valid or not, or was it revoked or not? There's a case where someone wrote something real fast on a trailer when they were injured. Did that count?
That I asked the question.
I'm a lawyer, and I think that lawyers are helpful. And I think that it's definitely worth talking to a lawyer because there are so many, just the ceremony to execute a will. Because I love the law, I like to sit in the ceremonies and just remember how important the law is, and the way you do, if somebody gets up and answers a phone call during the ceremony, that you have to start again. If you don't sign every page the right way, oh no, you have to remember that, hopefully when someone's looking at the will, the whole family's like, oh great, we know what to do. But if there's a case where the families are going to dispute the will, or maybe interpret things differently, you want it to be done exactly the right way to prevent
Junk.
stuff. Yeah.
Well, that's why I'm saying, I was told I have one,
Yeah.
and then they said that you could add on.
I think that's pretty specific. So you
I'm
should.
just saying, I going, okay.
That's pretty specific. So you might want to talk to somebody on your own. But one of the things that we
see
do.
you then, huh?
Yeah, sure.
Phyllis, I think
One
you
of
need
the-
to make an appointment.
One of the things that we
Telling
do.
you what I've been told.
Oh yeah, and that it's different in each state too, and it's different for each person. I heard a lawyer say on a different issue, just because if your neighbor got a different amount on their tax refund than you did, you're not going to say, well, they got that amount, why don't I get this amount? It's the same with kind of legal advice too. Just because your cousin had a different experience with their divorce, that doesn't mean you're going to get the same experience. You know, there's so many fact-specific, the law changes, different in each state. But one of the things we do with the estate planning is we give folks, for their personal property, we give them some forms for that, because a lot of our clients don't have a lot, but it has a lot of sentimental meaning to them, and so we allow them the proper forms to say, like, who gets the china cabinet and things like that. That's really what a lot of folks care about. So, yeah.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions?
I want to throw something in that's back to the fraud side of things. There is a program that Cheryl alluded to the fact that a lot of the bank tellers are now more aware of what's going on, and there's a program that I believe Silver Key just got a grant for. Is that correct? Yes. Is that okay? 3 people got the grant, which actually goes out and trains banking officials, in particular tellers, what to look for in those situations. So it's so much easier to fix those situations from a preventative side than it is from a legal side on the back.
Yeah. And then the last thing I'll say is we're setting up a statewide phone intake system. It's slowly evolving, but right now, if somebody has a question with a consumer issue, a foreclosure issue, or a landlord-tenant issue, you can call our office number, and then between the hours of 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday, if you dial extension 444, you can apply over the telephone for our services, and then we screen the case, and if it's a case we take, you'll either get advice from an attorney pretty quickly, or it'll get referred to the appropriate office. So it's another way to reach us. You can also come in, or there's applications online.
And you're located at?
Oh, yeah, 617 South Nevada, Nevada and Rio Grande, across from the police station.
Safest building in the city of Colorado Springs, across the street from the police station.
Yeah, that's true. All right.
So I just wanted to comment about what you said, that an elderly gentleman that I know was taken in by fraud over the phone, and he managed to give up $3,000 before the bank teller said, don't do this anymore. In fact, because it was the person on the other end claimed his granddaughter was in trouble, and they could barely restrain him because it was his granddaughter. But the bank teller was trained
Good.
to look for these things.
Good. That's wonderful.
And just one more side note, a recent piece of legislation was passed in Colorado that obligates financial planners to be mandatory reporters as well.
Yes.
So, and they're self-reporting. It's a very unique law. It's a model law, I think, that's going to kind of be patterned other parts of the country. But financial advisors now, if they feel that perhaps a family member or somebody else is taking advantage of an individual, they are now required to mandatorily report that.
Wow.
Good. All right.
Okay,
I'm gonna.
thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next will be the community of caring. I think we have a couple of visitors.
So we want vacation photos?
Yeah, vacation.
Can you see that?
Thanks, Gary. My name is Ted Borden. I'm the Executive Director for Community of Caring Foundation at the Aspen Mine Center in Cripple Creek. It's great to be here again, and I'm with Rebecca Blair, who will do the high-tech portion. She's going to do the PowerPoint. I have a little handout that I'm not going to pass out today, but I will pass out some flyers for you guys. I don't typically dress like this. I was at the Breakfast of Champions for Peak Vista, and so it was a great event. Again, Amy Van Dyken was a speaker, Olympic swimmer, so it was a great event. One of the things that always strikes me is when I come here, and everyone on the agenda, again, Peak Vista and Teller Senior Coalition and Legal Services are three of our great partnering agencies, and we truly couldn't do what we do without the collaborative and process in Teller County, so we are thrilled. One of the things I wanted to mention, and I'll leave the lion's share of the presentation up to Rebecca, but when we were established in 1999, Community of Caring, the reason that we really established as a nonprofit was because of the needs brought to the community because of the gaming industry. And it changed the dynamic of that area tremendously, still is very different. But at that time, we had a lot of seniors in our community that had been there for generations, from the mining industry and way, way back. And when gaming came to the community, it really everybody in a different frame of mind. There was not the security of just having a neighbor that you'd been there a long time with. The sense of history and the sense of community connectedness had gone away. And so ever since then, we've been trying to rebuild that and trying to preserve the history that our seniors really have in their minds and in their hearts from long time ago. And so it's the last 7 years since we've had the opportunity to have the Senior Advocate Program has been remarkable because we can help through Rebecca and other staff before her to really be able to hear the seniors and to hear some of the stories that they tell and to preserve that. And so it's been a very special program. We couldn't do it without the funding from AAA and PPACG. We are absolutely humbled to be able to provide this service. And so when things started really changing, it was very important to preserve the integrity of the seniors in our community. And not all of those seniors, of course, were from days of old. There was a lot of people that moved to Teller County in 1991 for the gaming industry itself that have stayed there, that have retired from the gaming industry, and now are struggling, whether that's financially because there's not a lot of pension plans out there anymore, especially from things like the casino industry. So there's a lot of challenges in that. There's a lot of challenges because of the elevation of Cripple Creek being at 9,600 feet. And so there's a lot of challenges medically for our seniors. And so to help to preserve them in their homes and preserve their independence has become a great passion of the Aspen Mine Center and of our senior advocates. So we're really very, like I said, humbled to be able to provide services for our seniors, but to also work with such quality organizations. So Sarah and Kristen and Mary Ann and Ralph, all the things that you guys do. Once upon a time, transportation was a huge challenge in Teller County, still is a challenge, but Ralph Senior Coalition and the City of Cripple Creek are working on some things with that. Our key risk factors in the community is still low neighborhood attachment, poverty. 60% of the kids in the RE1 school district are on free and reduced lunches. There's still a huge transiency issue, so 30% of the kids move in and out within a year's time. So there's a lot of challenges in regards to that in our community, but it's also a spectacularly beautiful area. We have a lot of people very passionate about working together and providing services. So I just kind of wanted to come at it from a different perspective than normal. And Rebecca's going to just tell you about what she does and some of the clients that we see. So thank you so much for allowing us to present today.
While Rebecca's coming up, I want to recognize Ted and Ralph and all the folks up in the hills, southern and El Paso, southern and northern Teller County. Because they do so much on the side. You know, we give people money, but these folks have gotten together on the side and made it work a lot better, and we really appreciate that, and particularly in the area of transportation.
There's power in numbers.
There is.
We may be small, but we're mighty if we hang together. All right. So, some of the accomplishments, we served 212 clients for a total of 1,564 service units in the past year. 78 were brand-new clients, meaning they may have lived there for a while, but they just hadn't come in for any services or anything, although some have moved in. About 60 are veterans. I did something that I haven't done before. I kind of did a search in Sam's of where they resided, and it does look like we are covering that southern end. 159 reside in Cripple Creek, 87 in Victor, 83 in Florissant, 21 in Woodland Park, and 18 in Divide. And that's because in Woodland Park and Divide, Teller Senior Coalitions handle most of that. We get a few. Our number one accomplishment is coordinating with collaborative partners. I just listed some of the ones that we deal with most frequently. Cripple Creek Police Department. I have a senior who has just started a neighborhood watch program in Cripple Creek. For the first time, they've never had one. Never had one. It was amazing. So it was really good to see him, and we had like 3 representatives from the police department come out. It was very exciting. Cripple Creek Care Center, we confer with them quite a bit. Even though our primary charge is to keep the seniors in their home as long as possible, there comes a time when they are not safe at home. And they will come to me, or a family member will come and does want to get in touch with the care center, and we help facilitate that. Of course, the Divide Clinic, Teller County Department of Human Services, we deal with the Adult Protective Services. We do have an office right there in the Aspen Center, so they can come in and they can apply for the food stamps right there. We do help them apply for the home care-based services, long-term care, and that's very important, and they can do that, again, right there in the building. Prospect, of course, comes out and serves some of the seniors who do get those doctor's orders. Rocky Mountain Options for Long-Term Care, of course, helps us with the HCBS program. Veteran Service Officer, he is much less intimidating than dealing with the VA, so I have quite a few veterans who will come in and talk with Mike Bartol, where they will not call the VA, and he can help them. He can be that buffer. And, of course, the Sheriff's Office, we've got a new representative over there in Victor. She was just in my office last week. Because being a mandatory reporter, I had heard anyway, she took care of it. It was awesome. She was there in my office in an hour. That was a good thing. The Independence Center, of course, is very, very active up where we are. They've got quite a few classes. They've got the traumatic brain injury classes. They've got All Vets, All Wars classes. It has been awesome to see how they have managed to pull in a lot of peers that come in and meet. And, of course, Storehouse Ministries and Help the Needy. They're our co-partners when we're trying to do financial things or with the medical equipment. And then Colorado Legal Services, who I call quite a bit. Quite a bit. And it will be even more after I heard some of the things today. I actually have an example on here, I'll tell you. Yeah. Case management, our number one is to help them stay independent at home. I went through the list and counted at least 31 that I know that through us and our partners, we were able to keep them in their homes when they were at risk of not going home. The one story I wanted to tell is Corrine. She's got end-stage COPD. We did help her find a caregiver, and we've coordinated with Prospect, so they are doing hospice at home. She was very, very concerned the first time I met with her and did an assessment that she did not want to leave her home. Now, it's really challenging with COPD at that elevation, yes. But bless her heart, she's got a great caregiver who actually lives over there in Victor. The caregiver's mom was best friends with Corrine when the caregiver was in school. So it's a very nice win-win. She still tears up because she knows she's going to lose Corrine, and I keep telling her, but you are serving such a purpose. You are blessing her right now, and she's blessing you, and you got to focus on that. So it's a good match. Sometimes they have to transition to another facility. We have some that are not safe at home. Usually it is end-stage Alzheimer's. We have 2 clients that live there in Cripple Creek, and the wife brought her mother from back east. She was living in a bad situation, just care for herself or her home. And she has had her assessed, and she is now in a local facility, so she's still around family, and she is safe. So we also recognize that's got to happen. We do also participate in the Golden Bridge Network, as does Teller Senior Coalition and some others, and I've got some of their brochures here. It is where, again, we've come together so we don't duplicate efforts, but so we can be stronger by working together with other services. So we've got Daybreak Adult Day Program, Prospect, Aspen Bowers Assisted Living, the Public Health, Pikes Peak Regional, the Senior Coalition, Cripple Creek Care Center, the Woodland Park Senior Club, and the Department of Human Services. So we meet about once every 3 months, and then we had an expo. Okay, say that on the next one. Let me go here. We had an expo on August 26th at a church there in Woodland Park and had a great turnout. We had lots of booths. We had speakers. We had Sarah Qualls from the UCCS on Aging. I think you guys know that.
Booths, not booths.
Oh, yeah, booths.
Okay. When the Mormon hears booze, that's not good.
That's not good.
I started laughing like, what? I knew that's not. I just giggled. You looked at me.
He knew Wendy is trouble. No.
People do not need to know.
And each member of Golden Bridge submits a news article to the Courier once a month. So we had ours on July 6th, and that's mine, and I was speaking on that it couldn't be further from the truth. Often people come in and they're like, well, but I really want to stay in my home. Well, that's what we are going to help you do. We're going to talk to you about different resources and see what kind of a plan we can come up with. So that was that one. And then the challenges, of course. Ted and I were talking about that this week, and I think one of our biggest challenges in Teller County is they are very, very independent. They're like hyper independent, okay? So I grew up in Colorado Springs, and as Joe knows my parents, and my parents are pretty hyper independent. Hyper independent, yes. So when we're trying to help them, it's similar to what I do with my parents. Actually, what I do with my parents is I don't do it directly because they will not accept help from me. So I call neighbors, I call Silver Key, and I arrange for it to happen, and then they're okay if it happens through those groups, but not me. It's like, oh, yes. So we've got wood coming in. They don't know that I arranged it. So, Joe, don't tell them. They still don't know. Don't tell them. So we do what we can, coordinating with various agencies. But a lot of they are just so independent that it's a huge challenge. And I think I have the next case is one where Herman is a disabled veteran, and he was working in a casino and when he had a major stroke over a year ago. And he really believed that he would be able to drive again and work again. Well, after more than a year, it's pretty obvious it's not going to happen. We did hook him up with a disability advocate, and he did get his disability. He lives in a remote area. It's up on Gillette Flats. And poor Maggie with Teller Senior Coalition, they're like, well, it may damage our vehicles, so we will we will do what we can do. But he can't even walk down his hill. And now he had a mortgage insurance that was paying what I thought was paying. But now he's calling saying he's working on a foreclosure. But it looks like it's of a second. Anyway, so we're going to talk to Colorado Legal about this. But bottom line is we're not sure it's safe where he's at. It's solar. The solar's broken down. He has no water. He has no heat except for a wood stove. He has no transportation except when we have mercy on him and we four-wheel up there and get him. And so I'm trying to get him to embrace a new dream. He and I were talking about that last week, and he's going to come in, and he's in tears on the phone because he said, I'm going to lose my dream. And I feel at the mercy of everybody else. And I'm trying to get him to envision that it could be, because he's so social. He loves it. I mean, he worked in the casinos. He wants to be around people. And so I'm trying to get him to see a vision of where he could be in town. He could take our shuttle. He could still be independent, but he would not be so far out. So we're working.
Age, what is his?
He's a young senior. I want to say 61 or 62. Yes. And it was a severe stroke. I mean, he's hard to understand verbally, and he has to work with a cane. Yeah. Oh, but here's a praise about him. One of the problems that we had was his house was trashed. His wife had MS, and I don't really know who to believe, and it doesn't really matter, but it was trashed. So Mike Bartol with the VA said that they had gotten a grant in Teller County where they could give a grant to some of the veterans. So I was crafting a letter to submit to see if Service Master would come up and clean it up for him. And when I called them, I told them they needed to come up and give me an estimate because I didn't know how much to ask for. I had no clue. So they came up, and they did a walkthrough inside and outside. It was trash everywhere. The bears were coming. It was horrible. I called Service Master a week later, and they said, well, it'll be about $3,000 to get it all cleaned up. And then he said, but we want to donate it. We do a service project every year. We're going to bring our whole crew up on a Saturday. We're going to knock it out in the morning. We're just going to make it go away. And then we're going fishing at Antero. And they did it. Now, he has a friend, a caregiver, who's another disabled veteran who's in his 20s. And Dan was out there, and he was in tears. He was just crying to see it get cleaned up because he felt bad that here he is, he's younger, and he really couldn't clean it up for his friend. So we got it cleaned up. It's just that he might not be able to hold on to it. He might not. So anyway. Transportation has become better covered, much better covered. We have a few outliers. It's funny, along with Herman, there was another gal on a four-wheel drive road who had to leave her Jeep at the bottom of the road for Teller County, the senior services, to pick her up, bring her back. And we're working on getting someone to take food in there. But anyway, that's it's always, to me, that's fun. To me, it's like a jigsaw puzzle, and we're just going to figure out who has the resources and how we can get it done. Another huge challenge that we face all the time is discharges from hospitals. And I don't know why. We're going to try to work with some of these different agencies and see if we can get like a process chart so we can see, because we don't know where the ball's getting dropped, but somehow, like I had a senior who had knee replacement surgery. And she went home. Granted, she's another hyper-independent, and so she decided she was going to go home even though she had no one at home to help her. And then a week later, her body started shutting down. They think it is out of stress from she's 82. And so she got put back in. But when she was discharged the first time, there was a lot of unknowns about if anybody could go in and do the home care. They finally did find an agency, Team Select, to come in and do the PT. But we couldn't find anybody to go in because she's right on the border between Park County and Teller County. Right, and we had to show them on a map because it starts in Park County in Lake George. But when you go out Trail Creek, then it goes back into Teller County. So anyway, there was just a lot of up in the air. And so we're just trying to work it out, trying to get it straightened out. Of course, some of the non-aging funded events, of course, is still our meal on Wednesdays. I just wanted to highlight that we're still doing that. It's huge. We were just overwhelmed yesterday with people are sitting all the way down and down the stairs, and it was crazy. So this is Dick Bauer, some of you who have been here for a while, I always tell a story about Dick. That's Dick with his puppy Snowball right before he fell and broke a hip on Super Bowl Sunday. And so he was in the hospital, and then he was in rehab, and then he came up and was in the Cripple Creek Care Center. And the success is we did get him home. But for the first 3 or 4 months, he had to pay his caregiver out of his pocket because we could not get the HCBS long-term care reinstated. This is one of those, we don't really know why it took so long, but it's working now. But it's one of those we'd like to fix. We'd like to make sure it doesn't. So he's doing great, and we just want to let you know that we really like partnering with you and serving the seniors of Teller. So if you have any questions, I think that's my last slide. Yes.
Questions, comments? Just an observation to start. I went up and took a tour some number of months ago, and I was fascinated and really impressed. I really was. It was a great experience to see hands-on delivery of senior services and just the way the community and the various agencies and organizations are working together in a very somewhat remote, difficult area to deal with. But that collaboration, that cooperation is huge. So if you get a chance, I'd really say, contact Ted or Rebecca and go on up and take a tour. It's really, really worthwhile.
I got to tell you one side. This is so neat. We had our commodities delivery on the same day that you came up, and so people are scrambling. We're unloading pallets of food, and so as gracious as you were, took off his jacket, rolled up his sleeves, and started heaving boxes. It's like, man, you come back anytime. It was great. So thank you. It was great to have you. So we really
Thank you. Was there a question?
No, that's
question?
okay.
Okay. All right, why don't we take about a 10-minute break, come back at 1:45?
Quarter to two.
1:45.
Quarter to
11, okay?
That's a
10-minute break.
Dave, that's a TOO instead of TWO. Is that what you're saying? 2 o'clock, right? Haven't warmed up yet, B. I heard about that. I says, "Where's B?" And then because we missed you.
It's been a process. It's week I wasn't able to drive, so I couldn't get to the
Cheryl?
I don't really know. I mean, it wasn't in Paris. They give me the bigger of those 2 flash drives. Just pull it out. I already said. Yeah. To me, like trying to keep the residents. I didn't trim it forward. I sort of fell on it. Okay. So who knows? I don't. If I figure it out, and I've asked my doctor.
Road is going to be done supposedly by the 20th.
Which came first?
Road that's going to go out. Gas station.
Yes, it is. Well, they put in a rod and a bunch of screws, and it's healing properly, and I'm in physical therapy now. I mean, like, you come out of the cast, and you can't move. There's no flexibility.
Well, we bought that.
And now I'm weight bearing.
Going on. Yeah. Road is going to mention that Linda loves it. She'll come in, right?
Single-level home stand. So when I moved here, I bought a home single level. And I had one little step down into the garage, so my son built me a little ramp. And when I started out in my house, I have this so then I could get around my house, down the little ramp in the morning, and have my coffee, just reading my newspaper. So I've been able to get around my home really well. But until just a week ago, I couldn't. You know how that goes. gotta always ask somebody to take me here and take me there, and so I'm really excited about being able to drive. Yeah. So I can come here, you know, otherwise, because, you know, I'm 15 miles up the road. Just the friends say, where you down the street? And that's 3 hours. Yes, and come back. Come back.
What's called basement.
Now, your friends are friends, but there's a limit.
But it can
Great program, great
Oh, we are doing it. I was kind of wondering. So, it's done and approved as of this morning. 2 copies for you to sign and has to be extra and I need a copy back. You guys can keep them. And I sent an email to Chris, so Chris knows that walk in. And last but not least,
well,
there you go. I've had $5 changed for you. Since December of last year. So there's your $5.
Hey, you want to go to breakfast?
Can we go anywhere for $5?
Probably not. McDonald's, we can get a $1 sandwich. So, and Chris knows all the details as far as what we're supposed to do and how long and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and she and I are actually, I'm working with Dave Romero over at Silver King because I am Chris. How you doing? As the money gets spent down, we're not going to see that balance drop here. Nobody, and I don't want to get
So if we give it out, we need to be letting you know.
Are we having,
Is it still the end of December that it has to be stood by?
what's after that? 'Cause I may have to leave.
Uh-huh. Okay. The goal is to try.
I think I'm gonna go sit over there so I don't disrupt anything.
So that's
What a win-win for,
everybody.
yeah. So,
Thank you. I've had that in my office.
you said 3 things, and right now all of a sudden I'm remembering 2. What was the third one? Oh, the money. Okay. Like I'm missing something. What was it? So Aspen Point is doing the iPads here. Started about 6 months ago. For wraparound service, case management service, and helping them find jobs. I had this wonderful through the, I think it was stages. Office behavior health integrity. So this for staff member, which is
I only get 10 minutes.
Hi, how are you? Great.
That's what Carrie said, and I must have had it worked up in my head that it was going to be much worse. So I came out feeling pretty good. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. Try and turn it. Yeah. Thank you for your research, though, too. I called Carrie last night and said, oh my gosh, I just keep wondering, is there something we're not seeing?
I think it's time now to start drinking some water. Oh, here it is.
I would say probably by the end of this month. Maybe the first week of
Hello.
Are you always here? The actual contract is week.
No, this is my first year.
I thought so. I didn't recognize you.
Yeah, huh?
Audiologist, Marianne.
Oh, hi, Marianne.
We're always talking about how rarely we get our audiologist.
Oh, really?
Are you in Fairplay?
I'm in Bailey. I serve the Black Canyon area, but Fairplay is our hometown, so to speak. That's where our board meets. Yes, there is.
Somebody from the state office of behavioral health did a
The fair.
Yes,
I wish we could have them come down here and do that same training. So
I'm doing really well. And you seem like you are.
do that probably for maybe for Aspen Point, it's regional Aspen Point, maybe part of the training.
Oh, well, that would be a good idea. To do that in Fairplay. I know I'd be interested in coming. Really? Oh my.
I could talk about it.
Yeah.
Right next door.
Well, do you have a card?
Yeah, it was like up and down. It was going to happen. Finally.
Okay, give me a card. And
So it looks like
it seems like we've had your presentation every once in a while. Because I've been on the board for 3 or 4 years, but not on the RAC board. No. I've been on the Park County Senior Coalition board. Yeah. Well, if you give me a card, I will get it to Bobby, and we'll see what we can do. Okay.
because we bought the building.
All right. Yes. Oh, we need some service in Park County.
Oh, you betcha, honey. As soon as I get my wheel straightened out.
We haven't really even
Do
started on
food, or do you do utilities and stuff? We help with Coke.
Her husband wanted her to travel.
Okay, because somebody said that to me, and I thought they just did the food part.
That's what she's doing this year.
Because you're helping somebody that, not of the new one, no. Okay, because I know there's a gentleman that I know that said that, and I'm going, really? Help them pay their taxes too?
If If I could, we could kind of reassemble.
Yeah.
Hello, it's time. I think we try to reassemble.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's huge.
Oh, okay. All right. Gotcha.
Hi, Pat. Did everybody kind of pick their seats again, please? On the agenda here. Okay, so the next item on the agenda, if I could have your attention again, please. Next item on agenda is another provider presentation, this one by Peak Vista. So we'd like you to continue on that. I've heard a couple comments that people have to leave around noon. I'm just throwing that out there for what it's worth, okay? But please, come on up.
Good morning.
Morning.
All right. So I'm Kristen with Peak Vista Community Health Centers, and we're here today with the audiology program. So it's good to see you all again, and thank you so much for your continued support. The support you give just makes such a difference in the lives of those that we're helping and to have the hearing aids. The couple of things that I wanted to speak about today, and then I will hand over to Marianne Hamilton, our audiologist. The one is the non-aging funding services. So we did receive a grant this year, not from PPACG, but with that we were able to buy some new hearing aid and testing equipment. So that's really neat. Everything it does, I don't fully understand, but Marianne can explain. Dances, no, not really. So, and then with the unmet needs and the wait list, I wanted to point out, so we have 17 applicants, which is a 3-month waiting list. But I think this is the first time since I have ever been with this grant that this really is not a waiting list. That's scheduling people. So I am really, really excited that we do not have, because we've had, I think we had a 5-year wait 1 year. So it's just, it continues, and with the additional support from you, we were able to have Mary Ann come in another day. So that's just phenomenal, and to be able to get people in. So I really wanted to celebrate that. And then with the issues in contacting applicants, sometimes that is hard with the number coming up, and if you ever call the 632-5700, it's like this terrible vortex call center. So a lot of people will see that, and then leaving messages to people that are hard of hearing, it's hard for them to hear it, and I try to be very clear and enunciate. So then what I do when I cannot get a hold of them is I'll actually send them a letter and let them know I've been trying to contact you. If you're still interested, call me. So then we'll get those people in. So that's my piece on that, and I'll have Marianne come up and tell you all the really good stuff.
Good morning. I think I recognize almost everyone around here, so you all know who I am. And again, I want to thank you for continuing to support our program, and I also want to pass along, had a number of people that have just, with tears welling up in their eyes, just tell the people that make this possible, thank you. So there are people that are just extremely grateful. I wanted to pass along a few of those little anecdotal stories, and piggybacking on what Kristen was saying, you know, when I started doing this back when I was at the Easter Seals Disability Services office, and we saw, you know, everybody that applied, we saw them right away, but I remember back then our referral base was like word of mouth, and maybe a couple physicians in town, and maybe they'd hear about over here, but we really didn't have that many people applying to the program. And now we have Memorial Hospital's audiology department refers to us. We just had a hearing aid dispenser, a couple of them in town that have heard about our program, and when they are trying to sell somebody some hearing aids and realize that person can't afford them, they're sending them our way. And of course, we get referrals from Peak Vista physicians, from some of the EMT offices in town, so the referral base has really broadened quite a bit. But this last year, I want to thank you again. You gave us an extra funds to purchase thank you, to purchase some rechargeable hearing aids, because some of the people that we see, it's not just hearing loss for them. It's visual limitations, neurological problems, and just dealing with a hearing aid and the battery and all is just so monumental for them. So we had 5 people this last year that we put in to our rechargeables. One of our ladies from Teller County, she's had a stroke. She's in a wheelchair. She's not able to even raise her hands up to put her hearing aids in, much less deal with batteries and that type of thing. So we've got these rechargeables. So her husband, then we're training him to be the hearing aid technician for her, and because he doesn't know when the hearing aid batteries have gone out. So now we know that once they've been charged, they're going to go for 24 hours. So we've got him listening tubes so he can listen to the hearing aids, teaching him how to clean them out, and that since they're way up in Teller County, he can't exactly drop in. So he's one of our more recent, or she's one of our more recent rechargeable recipients. We've had somebody that's working, she's in her 60s, and she's been diagnosed with Parkinson's. She's in the very early stages. We know that that's going to take a toll on her, and being able to, she's shaking, not be able to put that battery in. So she's another recipient. We have somebody that has macular degeneration, she just can't even see the battery, much less put it in. So she received a set. So again, thank you so much for letting us purchase those. They are a more expensive item, but our supplier, Phonak, has just been fabulous in cutting the costs. We get 70% off of the cost of the hearing aids for the program. So, and they just again this year upped the hearing aids that we're using, gave us a new technology level. Sometimes I'm amazed that we are able to give this level of technology. It's 4 upgrades from when I first started this 9 years ago. So we've got really, really nice hearing aids, but I just wanted to show you what our rechargeables look like. And just as a side note, the industry people think that 10 years from now, all hearing aids will be rechargeable. So,
Battery people will be so sad.
yeah, they're not going to be very happy, yeah.
Don't worry, they're finding all sorts of other ways to get our money.
And a couple of the other really satisfying group of people for me is people that we see that really are having like high demands on their hearing and can't afford to get hearing aids. One of the gentlemen that we fit with hearing aids this last year, he teaches driver's ed to supplement his income. And he came in, he said he can't hear the teenagers talking in the car. And so, that was a great thing for him.
Take out the hearing aids, for
Yeah.
goodness sake.
Yeah, you don't want to hear, yeah.
Here to DMV to get his license.
Yeah.
That's Tuesday,
Right.
so I'm thinking he probably doesn't want that.
Yeah. Well, and we have a school bus driver up in Teller County that also has received hearing aids, so you can hear the kids on the bus or shut them off. And then one of the ones this year that really touched me was a woman who, from unfortunate circumstances, is raising her 7-year-old granddaughter, and at the same time caring for her ailing husband. And she's in her 70s, can't hear her granddaughter very well, and to constantly have a child having to repeat, that's not going to work too well. So she's extremely grateful for her hearing aids. And piggybacking on some of the things that have been talked about previously, the federal government has gotten very involved with hearing aids this year, and I don't think most people, consumers, don't realize that the government, the federal government, DORA, they regulate the dispensing of hearing aids. And those of you that read the AARP publications have probably heard about some of these things. But last December, the FDA decided that they would no longer require us to obtain physicians okay to get hearing aids. In the past, that was a requirement, and there's a lot of unscrupulous activity that goes on in the hearing aid world, but people can sign waivers if there's a justification for them signing a waiver. We never allowed the waivers, but now that the FDA has said, no, we realize this is a hindrance, it's time-consuming, it's preventing people from getting hearing aids, it has been an enormous time saver for Kristen and me. I think that's why we're seeing more people. I can't even begin to tell you how much quicker from the time I see somebody to the time we get them in the hearing aids now. They have to sign something that they agree they do not have these red flag warning signs that require me to send them to an ear doctor. We go through all of those, they sign off, and it's just, we're good to go. So it's huge change in our area. The other thing that has happened in the hearing aid industry is in August, Trump signed the FDA Reorganization Act, and the FDA, in part of that law, is required to, within the next 3 years, develop guidelines for the sale of over-the-counter hearing aids for people with mild to moderate hearing loss. So, the industry reports that group of people, there's less than 15% of the people that need a hearing aid in the mild to moderate group that actually go out and get hearing aids. They are very expensive, and people feel like, well, people just talk louder, then I'll hear them. So, in a way, it's a good thing, but it's also for people in the field, for us, it's going to create some issues down the road, and we don't know. They have 3 years to develop this. It's the requirements that they're putting on the FDA, or the FDA is being asked by the audiology industry and the hearing aid industry is, they cannot be children. They must be 18 years of age to purchase them. But what's to prevent somebody from going in and purchasing them and putting them on their 16-year-old? There's nothing there. They have to have limits on the output of the hearing aids so they don't further damage hearing. They have to have warnings on the package that, if any of these conditions exist, they should not be used. You should see your doctor. And there's also to be that, again, it's only for a mild to moderate hearing loss. But from our point of view, they're looking at, well, we have to have people now sign waiver forms. If we have these people coming into our offices with their hearing aids that they purchased over the counter, and now maybe they don't like them, and now what do they do with them? And as an audiologist, we have to make sure they understand that we didn't fit these hearing aids. This is not what we chose for them. So there's a lot of issues they're going to have to work out in this, and I have no idea. Nobody knows what companies are going to charge for these. And if it's going to be then a pushback that, oh gosh, I paid $500 for my over-the-counter hearing aids, they don't work, hearing aids are no good, maybe that person had a severe hearing loss, and that just wasn't appropriate for them. So there's a lot of things coming down the road there in that area that we're not sure how it's going to look for us. But there is the good side to it is that it at least can get people into the market. And talking about legal aspects of it and all, and the state does require that we go through certain things and people sign a contract, even though we're not selling our hearing aids. They are still required that they understand certain things about the hearing aids. And one of the things that I've added onto our contract this year is that they understand they are not having to pay for their hearing aids. They are not required to pay for them, but where the money came for their hearing aid. So it's in black and white. They understand that a donation is definitely appreciated but not required, but this is who paid for your hearing aids. And so now on our contract, they're signing that. But down the road, I have these mild to moderate hearing aids. I don't know where that's going with that. But aside from that, like this, that Angie was talking about the what did she call it? The aging certificate type thing for a facility. I was really excited to hear about that because I hope there's some hearing aid dispensing facilities in Colorado Springs that will be signing on with that, because we are constantly hearing of stories of people spending $10,000 for a set of hearing aids, and that's highly inappropriate.
What would be the comparable? I mean, if that's what would be a normal?
A normal premium product would be about $6,000, $6,500. $10,000 would be okay if you're in New York City. Yeah, because I've heard of that for many years. That is what, but yeah, at the upper end.
But that prompts me to ask, with all the technology improvements that we see in phones and how much cheaper everything is, it appears that hearing aids have gone the other way.
That's true.
Do you see in the future, is there going to be some breakthrough as far as digital technology or something that can help the poor folks that are dealing with that?
Yeah, that's debated a lot, and that's why this, the over-the-counter hearing aids are coming on board. I think part of it's because it's tied into the medical industry, and we see these costs rising in the medical industry, and insurance payouts not appropriate for the amount of time that people are spending, and so this person that has this hearing aid business going, and he's not getting enough money from his insurance billing, so he's got to pay his rent, got to pay the salaries, and that's what drives a lot of the cost of the hearing aids, is the cost of doing business. And so and it actually has not changed much over the last 5-6 years as far as what places are selling their hearing aids for. But there is, the liability side of things too. Why should an audiologist and a hearing aid dispenser have to purchase exorbitant amounts of liability insurance? It's because we have such a litigious society. And then in the medical side of it, our new audiometer was around $10,000, and then we have to pay to have it calibrated every year. So I think that's where we're getting a lot of that cost that really hurts people. It's the things behind it.
Do you have to buy a pair of hearing aids, or can you buy a single one?
You buy a single. It's not, typically it's not what would be recommended, just because you think about your eyes, would you just put a glass in one eye, on one eye? It's the brain. The brain is taking the sound from both sides and bringing it in and using it together. The latest thing in audiology is telling people we hear with our brain, not with our ears. Our ears are just there to change an acoustic signal to an electric signal, and then the brain's taking over. But in cases where somebody has a dead ear, then one, and of course, is the only real option. But yeah, typically it's better to go with two, especially when there's background noise.
I am quite positive that the Park County Board of Directors would like to hear you speak. Is there any way that you could make arrangement for that in the next month or two?
Yeah, Kristen could do that. And I gave you her card. She has been in contact with Bobby in the past, she told me. So I don't know. Oh, okay.
I'll talk to her about this. And
Yeah, that's, yeah, we were discussing beforehand that Park County is an area where we really haven't had much penetration, so if we could get some. Okay. And the other thing, my final plug, that I did this last year and the year before, we love donated hearing aids, working or not, whatever. And I think we've talked about having something here where we could collect them, yeah. And what we do with our donated hearing aids is we send them to Starkey Hearing Aid Company. They have, it's like a bank of money for us. So they'll evaluate the hearing aids that we send in. They'll put a dollar value on it. They put it in our fund. And then when we have people that need their hearing aids repaired and are not able to afford that, we oftentimes will co-op with them. Because the hearing aid repairs are close to $200. So we'll tell them, can you pay $50? Can you pay $75? And then we pick up the rest with our money that's in our bank. So again, any hearing aids, pass them our way. Thank you again.
Okay, now we're moving to Teller Senior Coalition. Ralph?
I do have a PowerPoint, yes.
It's open on the desktop.
Come on, cowboy. There we go. Yeah.
Oh, it went to sleep. Yep, it did.
Does Joe get extra money for being able to do this?
Yeah. Done this once or twice, Dave.
I know.
Should be right down there. One of the. There you go. Thanks, Joe.
People to do this for them. Hi, I'm Ralph Power. I'm the Executive Director of the Teller Senior Coalition. I think my big challenge today is going to be keeping everyone awake at 10, this late into the game. And then we have technical problems to start out. So it's not going well to start. But anyway, a little bit about Teller Senior Coalition. We've been around since 1997. We were formed in response to Teller County no longer funding senior services. And I'll get back into that at the bottom of this slide. So 97, we've been around, and we do a lot of different things. We have about 600 clients in our database using a number of different services. And that 600 clients represents about 1 out of every 4 seniors in Teller County. So we reach a lot of people. And as Ted Borden had alluded to earlier, collaboration and communication in Teller County is key. I think that we as a county do a very good job of working together to make things happen. So anyway, TSC, we have 10 paid employees, 8 volunteers, and we have a very active board of directors. In fact, my board president, Gail Gehrig, is here today to watch the presentation and to meet some of you. We have 5 main programs, and all of these are funded to some degree through PPACG and Title III of the Older Americans Act. We have case management, we have transportation, we have a respite program, a chore program, and a home-delivered meals program. So as I said, about 60% of our funding is Title III funding through PPACG. So we are super appreciative for this group, for your efforts, and for listening to us and helping to fund the needs of Teller County, because without your funding, we would literally be struggling at a monumental level and probably not able to operate. About 20% of our funding comes from the Federal Transit Administration through a senior and disabled program, which is actually transitioning next year into a rural transportation program that's going to include the general public. So we have some challenges there as well. And then the balance of our funding comes from foundation grants and program revenues, donations, and things like that. We did just finish a 5-year strategic plan, and a big component of our plan is to try to diversify our funding sources. And in saying that, Teller County and Woodland Park do not know this yet, but they're a part of that plan to come back to them and get back this money that was lost back in 1997 and caused us to be created. So anyway, that's kind of an overview. And our hallmark right now, transportation is about half of what we do budgetarily. And programmatically, it's a lot of what we do. So our trips are up from about 4,000 last year to over 5,500 this year, so about a 28% increase. We are overmatched locally. We are able to use Title III to match federal funds and vice versa. That's the only way. That's the only two programs you can do that with federal funds. We have Medicaid, which is a big source of revenue that we use for local match. Then again, program revenues and different foundation grants. And we're finding this year that the foundation grant environment is very volatile. It's quite different than it's been in years past. We have traditional funders who have changed their focus, and we have some who have dropped out altogether. So local match continues to be an issue, but right now we're in good shape with transportation. We have 5 vehicles. One of those is wheelchair lift equipped. We have another wheelchair lift equipped vehicle coming in December through a grant from the Federal Transit Administration. And then all of our subsequent vehicle purchases will be wheelchair lift equipped. So everything we will have within the next 3 or 4 years will have a wheelchair lift in it. So 2 types of service that we do. We do a demand response service, which is door to door. We come right to you. Most of those trips are medical, but there's not a trip restriction on that. We'll take you basically anywhere you need to go, provided we have the resources to do that. We also have a fixed route service that runs in Woodland Park twice a week, on Wednesdays and on Fridays. And on Wednesday, we connect with Cripple Creek Transit coming down the hill, and we take requests for transportation into Colorado Springs. So literally on a Wednesday, you could go from Victor at the very southern edge of our county and go all the way to Colorado Springs, which is pretty amazing because that was identified as through several transportation studies as being a major issue. So before I get into the challenge, we do have a couple of accomplishments. The Colorado Association of Transit Agencies, which has, I think, 80-some member agencies, last year we were recognized as the Small Transit System of the Year, and this year we won an award for Human Services Agency of the Year. And also Ted Schweitzer with Cripple Creek Transit this year, he won the award for Transit Professional of the Year. So Teller County, we basically took home 2 out of the 8 awards for transit in Colorado. So, but we still have challenges. The demand is there. The demand increases as more people become aware of us. That's a continuing problem. So maintaining and expanding the funding to meet that demand, and those are the big challenges in that program. Case management, again, we're up in case management as well. Case management is where it all starts. It's a critical function. And I'm going to go back into the coordination efforts and how that works. But you come in and you have an issue. Let's say it's not even something we can service. You have a question about VA benefits. Our case manager goes through, asks you a series of questions, and places you either within our programs or elsewhere in the county. And again, we work with Community of Caring Aspen Mine Center. We work with Golden Bridge Network, which is a 12-member agency. We recently took over as the lead agency for the local coordinating council for transportation, which was formerly done by Ted Borden and Aspen Mine Center. We just have more organizational capacity, so we were the logical organization to do that. But through getting all these organizations together in the county on a consistent basis and meeting and talking about issues and coming up with solutions, we all communicate. So we've really, that's why you're seeing case management go up and you're seeing units go up, is because we are, as a community, we're getting people to the right source. And it's not just us, and it's not just Aspen Mine Center, it's not just Cripple Creek, it's all of us working together. We have new agencies joining. We have, through the Golden Bridge Network, we have Daybreak, we have Prospect Home Health Care. We have a number of nonprofits that are involved. So it's a community-wide effort. Challenges we have is visibility. All of the studies that have been done recently, whether they are transportation or human services based, indicate there's a lack of awareness for the agencies that are out there in the communities that are doing those types of jobs. So it's a huge issue, and we do have some things going on. We have a joint marketing grant with Cripple Creek that we're doing through FTA to get some of our stuff out there. But we need more marketing funds. We have very limited money that's allocated to marketing every year, but we need to get the word out there because the demand is there, but a lot of people just simply don't know that we're out there. So visibility is going to come up as a recurring theme in the challenges in our programs. Client education, people don't know what is out there, where to go. And then we have changing needs. The demographics are changing. The 85-plus group is the fastest growing, and then we have a lot of people in that 55 to 60 group who are coming up now too. So these groups have different needs. So this is a constantly changing target as to what services are most effective for the community. So those are the challenges that we face in the case management program. Chore and handyman, this is probably our most difficult program because we simply can't find people to do the type of work. We're up 10%, but we could be easily be up 500% if we had qualified people in the community that were willing to do this. So we're focused mainly on things like grab rails and safety-related items. And again, the demand is just so high, but we just don't have the capacity to do anything. And finding the qualified volunteers is the biggest issue there.
Question on the volunteers then, is that, you have volunteer companies, is that what you're going to there? They have to meet certification in order to be doing plumbing or minor repairs and stuff?
We're looking for companies or individuals. It's anyone we can find, and it's very difficult to attract people, whether it's a company or an individual. So.
Okay. I'm just thinking from the monument perspective, what I recall is that they have certified companies. A couple companies that do the handyman services, so you don't have somebody fly by night coming in saying, I'm putting in a safety bar and it falls apart in the first use. So do you have a similar type of screening, if you will, or quality control on that?
At this point, we don't. The program is only reimbursed by the mileage that's attached to the program, so it's a strictly volunteer program. So at this point, if somebody can turn a wrench or swing a hammer and they can put up a grab rail, we'll probably enlist them. But as the program grows, if we find more funding for it, obviously we would add some controls and make it a little more formalized than what it is. So. Family caregiver, so if you are taking care of a family member who is terminally ill or otherwise ill and needs your assistance 24/7, we have this program. It's about 2,300 units of service we provided where we send a paid contractor into your home to spell you to take some time off and get away from the situation. The people we hire for that, they go through our screening process, which includes criminal background checks, DMV checks, and all the other things we do as if they were a regular paid employee. We just choose to pay them as contractors. And I'm not sure why that's set up that way. That predates me, but that's how we do that. We get local match through Easter Seals. I believe we got a grant from Colorado Osteopathic this year to augment the program as well. And I think we've applied for one or two other foundation grants to help with the respite program. So qualified caregivers, an issue we ran into last year was finding people who could pass our background check, which does not speak very well, but that was a challenge for us. So finding people who meet all of our requirements, which are fairly stringent, that is a big organizational challenge there. And again, the visibility, if you were taking care of someone and you knew somebody would come in and spell you, you would use that service. But people just don't know that we have that or that we're out there. So the final one is Home Delivered Meals Program. This program has taken off dramatically in the past couple of years. This last year we did approximately 8,500 meals. To people who are primarily out in the sticks on dirt roads. So we have some big challenges just getting things there. The boxes are the frozen meals, for instance. They cannot go I think it's 3 hours before you have to throw them out. So if we have a number of deliveries to make, and the tail end of that is approaching 3 hours, we have some issues. So there's logistical issues just based on the distances we travel, the weather, and the geography out there. And in the same thing, a lot of people don't know that we have this program. So I just keep coming back to visibility because we're starting to explore, well, what type of marketing grants are out there for nonprofits, and how can we get the word out there better? And maybe I need to work better with Ted over at Aspen to get us out there. But anyway, those are some of the challenges. Those are our programs. And with that, I see no one sleeping. So I'm going to open it up to a couple of questions.
Well, I was going to ask a question, but I didn't want to get up and walk all the way to the front while you were still talking. So when you're talking about marketing and grant, what is it exactly that you're hoping to get? Money to do marketing, money for promotional
Money
items?
for promotional items, brochure, whether it's brochures and it's grassroots, us putting 50 brochures out at the library this week, or whether it's, the Courier for an actual advertisement, or the Mountain Jackpot.
You're looking for physical, tangible things that you can print to actually get.
Right.
Okay.
And this grant we got with Cripple Creek through Federal Transit Administration, what it's doing is it's allowing us to kind of do a pilot program to determine what channels of marketing distribution, whether that's the newspaper or radio, or it's not a good example, but what is the best way to reach people with your marketing and promotional materials. So that'll help us define a little closer, okay, where should we put our money once and if we get that.
We should talk.
So, okay. All right.
Questions?
A suggestion regarding the handyman, you might check and talk to Roger or some of the guys over at Regional Building.
Okay.
That's what they do is control the building trades. And there may be a way there to do some promotional stuff to let the folks that are always in there and work under their supervision.
Okay.
There might be some opportunity to do that.
And are they down here?
Yeah.
Regional
Okay.
building, yeah.
Regional building.
They're regional for.
And that's Roger. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And he's the head guy.
Okay.
Really a good guy.
And Jerry sent you to him. Make sure you mention that.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I'll get a door slammed on you.
I doubt that.
No, Roger's a good guy.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Thanks very much.
All
Appreciate
right.
it.
Thanks for your support.
Okay, now it's the time for the Executive Director's Report.
I will try to be somewhat brief. There's a lot going on. We've been working very, very hard this month. We're just not making a lot of forward progress necessarily. Wanted to start out talking about our funding situation, which some of you are familiar with. It changes on a daily basis. We have yet to receive any federal funds for fiscal year 17-18. So we've been operating exclusively on state funds since July 1. That poses a little bit of challenge for programs that we traditionally fund 100% federally. In specific, a lot of the nutrition services programs, congregate meals, home delivered meals, has a pretty significant impact on transportation, that type of thing. Our accounting staff, Casey and Jess, have done a real good job of juggling money, for lack of a better term. You don't like to say juggling money and accountants in the same sentence, but at a public agency. So they've done an excellent job of keeping us afloat during that time period. We found out beginning of this week that the state did receive the continuing resolution portion of the money that we were owed for this year. So we've got October and November's worth of money from the federal year, 1/6, I guess, of the year's allocation. The state has put that together with the carryover money from last year and some other money that they had in residual funding, and we'll be issuing that probably within the next 4 to 5 weeks. So in the long story short is that we hope to cobble together enough federal money to get us through until mid-January, perhaps February 1st, when hopefully the rest of the federal money comes. And a lot of that depends obviously on what happens with the continuing resolution, which expires on December 8th. So the common thinking is that there will be another continuing resolution that will go through the end of the fiscal year, and then we should get that money probably sometime early spring. We hope to get that in time to actually be able to spend it before the fiscal year expires, so we're working on that. The other variable that came into play with our funding issues is the state controller, the Colorado State Controller, has invoked a statute which has apparently been on the books for quite some time, but nobody knew about, which states that we cannot encumber any federal expenses until the federal money is in the state coffers. So, in other words, we can't issue services, can't perform services that would be federally funded until those federal dollars are in our pocket. Up to this point in time, basically the state has just covered that federal money until it got here, and they are not willing to do that anymore. Any questions about that fairly complicated process?
Can you repeat the whole thing from the
No, I
beginning?
will not repeat the whole thing.
Could I ask, did you say that the federal money right now has covered October and November?
The state of Colorado received the money that was authorized through the continuing resolution at the federal level, which would be October 1 through December 8.
Okay.
So they did receive that money. They have a lot of processing to do on their end to get that available to us. So we anticipate that probably another 4 weeks we should get it. 4 to 5 weeks is what we've been told.
Okay.
Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
So how does that affect, I do the rural area meal program, how does that affect my program as far as like ordering food?
The question is, can you spend money now? And it really depends on the individual programs. Many of you know a lot of these programs, most of these programs are siloed into specific parts and areas. Some of those areas on October 1 were basically fully funded at that point. So certain meal programs were. We'd have to, long story short, we'd have to look at the individual program to find out where you stand. The other option is, can we use state funds to carry over during that time period? We did find out that we're able to take the money that the state already had, which was the carryover funding and some of those other things, and we can spend that for services that were provided prior to October 1. So we will be able to do some of that retroactively. Some of it we won't. We just have to look at the individual program is the only way to do it, because some of those programs have an allocation of 35% for the year. Some of them are going to be 100% funded as soon as we get that check.
So I need to work with Lisa and yourself as well.
And Casey, our accountant, is probably the only one that actually understands that. She has had a challenging month and a half, if the best way to describe it. And it continues. Yeah, I told Dave I signed a authorization yesterday to move funds. I have to sign off every time we move funds. We moved funds in probably about 180 different areas yesterday just to balance things. So every single provider, we have 17 providers. A lot of those providers have 8 or 9 programs, and some of those programs have sub-entities through them. So it's a big puzzle right now. Lisa, got anything to add to that? I didn't think you would.
And Joe, you're basically saying Congress has to approve this continuing resolution to get the federal funds?
The biggest change, the biggest impact that we experienced was the change at the state controller's office that said, we're not going to give you federal money, we're not going to allow you to spend federal money until we have it in our pocket. So that was a huge change for us. We've never had to worry about that. So that's why the money that we normally would have gotten last May, we still haven't gotten. The second part of that is the future. Where do we go for the rest of the fiscal year? And that is dependent on the continuing resolution that will happen hopefully sometime before December 8th. It is complicated. We, at one point, kind of pinned all this on the feds, and it's not really completely the feds' fault. It's a lack of confidence to a certain degree between the state and the feds at this point in time. Other questions? Okay. I get a lot of questions about the executive director search. We are nearing the completion of that. I am on that search team. There are, I think, 9 or 10 people on that search team comprised of 5 board members, 3 community reps, and 3, that's more than 9, that's 11, and 3 staff members. We've been meeting for a little over half a year now, interviewing candidates, interviewing executive search firms. We have done direct interviews with candidates about a week and a half ago, and background checks were conducted on those folks over the last week and a half, and in 27 minutes that group will be meeting upstairs to look at those background checks, look at that information, and forward a list to the board for hopefully for final approval at the next board meeting on November 8th. Ma'am.
Can I ask again, I missed what you said the search was for?
The PPACG Executive Director.
Okay.
Position which has been open for pretty close to a year, not quite a year.
The head dude.
The head
The
dude.
recommendation will be on a specific one candidate or multiple candidates for the board.
That's a good question. The recommendation will be for multiple candidates, and the board will interview those candidates and then make a decision based on that. So
On that date.
on that date.
November the 8th?
November the 8th. And there's still some question as to whether that will be done in open session or executive session. That will be announced probably sometime right before the board meeting, I would imagine. Actually, maybe even announced after today.
I was under the impression that that was after all the candidates would be in town for a meet and greet. Is that still the plan?
There is a session with the board that's scheduled, yes.
I understood there was also a session for staff.
There is, I believe, a session for staff as
Okay,
well.
so that would be the day before?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
This board, nothing.
PPACG board.
We continue to work on a senior portal with Innovations in Aging. There's actually a group getting together in the next couple of weeks to talk about that. One of the things that came out of the Innovations in Aging and the age-friendly process was that people didn't know where to go for senior information. And Carrie and I kind of stuck our hands up and said, you know, we've been doing that for 40 years. And what was realized was that the process was there, the infrastructure was there, but a lot of people didn't know about it, so it's marketing. It's very similar to what Ralph was alluding to. So there's a group getting together to see if we can improve that process and make it more available to more seniors. Some of you are familiar with Senate Bill 1711, which outlines some funding to look at a pilot project in El Paso and Teller County to improve access to transportation for disabled individuals. That's moving forward. The final report on that is due. We've been actively involved with that, and the final report is due to the legislature in mid-December. Excuse me. So just basically looking at options. It was a very quick turnaround. It was a 6-month time period to get together a whole program. So there have been people from the local disability community involved in that. There have been folks from transportation involved in that, Mountain Metro, us, and a pretty broad variety of groups. And then one very positive thing, many of you followed the work of SAPCA, the Strategic Action Planning Group on Aging. SAPCA made a set of recommendations about not quite a year ago regarding their 18-month project. Their very top recommendation, top priority, was to have a cabinet-level position in the governor's office to advise on senior issues. Obviously, it always comes down to money to a certain degree, who's going to pay for that position. And a group called Next 50, which is a foundation formed with the conversion of InnovAge to a for-profit entity. That foundation stepped forward and is going to fund that position for the first 3 years of its operations to the tune of about $450,000, about almost $500,000. And so they are currently seeking the person to fill that position. So it's been approved. and is funded, and I think that they're looking to have somebody in place before the end of the year, which is a very positive
So
thing.
would that be a political appointment depending on who the governor is?
I believe it is a political appointment. Yes, it's not a career position.
Is that on the website?
It's more than likely on the SAPCA website. I saw the position release. I think it came out of the State Human Resources Department, which you rarely get releases from the State Human Resources Department. But since it came directly from the governor, you could Google it and find it.
Could you repeat the funder of that?
The funder is called Next 50.
Next 50?
It's a private foundation. I'm not going to take a lot of time on this one, but when Innovage, home health care company, which does the PACE program in northern Colorado, other parts of Colorado, petitioned the state to change from a nonprofit status to a for-profit status, they had to yield certain funds, certain profits, I guess is the best way to put it, that they had accrued when they were a not-for-profit. Those funds were put into a private foundation to the tune of $220, I think, million roughly. So that foundation is now operating independently with their own board. And they stepped to the plate and said, yeah, we'll fund that. Other questions? Okay, thanks.
I just have one brief thing from up in the Tri-Lakes area. There's a church that's emphasizing community information sessions, and the church sponsored, I made a recommendation that they look at having Kent Matthews come up and give a presentation. And it's interesting that the church is hosting these at the Pikes Peak Brewery. But it really has been working out well. It's on a monthly basis. I attended the Kent's presentation a week ago, and it was very well attended. We had about 35 or 40 people there, and it was on caregiving and boomers. Very, very well received. So again, I would just urge, there are an awful lot of very qualified, capable, and experienced, and just wonderful individuals like Kent that can provide a lot of information if you take advantage in your own communities, your own areas. He gives similar types of presentations to all sorts of different groups and the rest of it, and I've already begun to see if I can get him in a couple of different places up there as well. It's one of those things that, everybody's talking about the need for marketing, for visibility, and the rest of it. This is exactly the type of thing that's really critical, and it ties into the funding challenges. If there are more and more people in all of our individual geographies or communities that understand, wow, there's some really great stuff that's happening, but boy, it's hanging by a thread because of the finances at the federal or state level or whatever it may be. By our explaining that, hosting these presentations and stuff, I think that will add to the pressures, if you will, and hopefully the resolution of this funding-related issue. So I think that's about all I have at this point. Carrie? Calendar of events, we have our meeting the day after, or the week after Thanksgiving.
We do. We have our next and final RAC meeting for the calendar year on Thursday, November 30. So hopefully you'll be all done with Thanksgiving leftovers by then. And we'll be having a potluck luncheon in this room after the meeting is over. We have Silver Key on the agenda as a presenter, so we'll have a full business meeting in advance. We'll start at 9 o'clock. And then we'll do what we did last year, where we reconfigure the tables into groupings. That worked out really well. Everybody, I think, really enjoyed it. So we'll have other business items on the agenda as well. But
okay. Well, thank you very much for that, and I think we're all looking forward to that.
You're
It
welcome.
really is a great opportunity to work on the networking and getting a little bit better understanding of organizations and personalities. Any other final comments from any of the members?
Yes, I have one.
Yes.
I don't know how many of you folks have heard of the John Zay House. It's similar to Ronald McDonald House, but not quite. A bunch of the Home Builders Association people 11 years ago put that together, and it's right next to Penrose Hospital, just south of it, at Penrose and Madison, I believe.
Yeah.
And so I guess we didn't have enough to do, so several of us volunteered to do an addition onto that. So we've added about 15 units onto that. This is an extremely nice place to stay, and it's for people from out of town that have people in Penrose Hospital. It is totally free.
Wow.
If you want to make a donation, you can. And so we added, I think, another 14 units. I was in charge of all the civil stuff, so getting the sidewalk had to be replaced and torn out, and curb and gutter, pave the parking lot, stripe it. Anyway, it's almost done, and we're having the big ribbon cutting on Monday. And I believe I know the bishop's going to be there, and the mayor. Kind of a big deal. It's very heartwarming to see what these people do. It's operated by the Penrose Hospital Foundation, and they tell stories about people that couldn't afford while they were staying there, and years later they're sending money every month to help supplement that thing. If you can't afford to pay, obviously they'll take your donation. It's contributions only, and it is extremely nice. We've built suites, so they've got a microwave in there. They've got a little refrigerator, either single bed or double. Very nicely done. So we've got about $1.2 million in donations from the trades. We've got people gave us a break on concrete, labor to pour the foundation, roofing. I can't even tell you. My guys that did the concrete work, tens of thousands of dollars of contribution. So we're building that thing for less than 50 cents on the dollar about what it would cost. And it's been extremely difficult given the building business is very healthy right now, so everybody's busy. So the poor guy that's running it, he's very happy to see it done. I mean, me too. You have guys that say, I'll be there Wednesday to do the paving. They don't show up. Well, what are you going to do, holler at them? Or go get somebody else to do it? There is nobody else, number one. Number two is they're doing it for half price. So it's been a challenge, but it's going to be very satisfying.
And what's the name of it again?
The John Zay House.
And actually, Jerry, I have a very dear friend who used to work at Penrose in the rehab department, and she has been volunteering every Wednesday and helps to coordinate the meals from local church groups that bring the meals in, because that's how they feed those who are the guests.
Yeah.
In the evenings, local church groups bring the dinner for everyone who's staying there that night. And she, honestly, I don't know that. I mean, she lives for that Wednesday because that's her main source of social interaction, and she gets to be a part of it. And since she was an employee at Penrose for probably close to over 20 years, it's still a way for her to still be involved. And it's a gorgeous house.
Yeah. Very handy. It's right across the street from the hospital. I would especially mention it to the Teller and Park County folks because that's what it's for. They have a.
How do you
How do you spell it?
Z-A-Y, John Zay, Z-A-Y.
Like imagine John Jay,
Oh,
the
John Zay, and then
Supreme
house
Court
is a separate
Justice with a
word.
Z.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Zay house.
It's lovely. You can drive by it.
and you could stop by.
Yeah.
The people that run it would be happy to give you a tour to show you what they have.
And I'll tell you that about 20 years ago, when I worked at Cedar Springs Hospital, I ended up with a young man on the locked residential treatment center unit who he and his brother had been picked up by, first alerted to their presence by the police, and then El Paso County DHS picked them both up and put them in custody. They were living in the back of their van in the parking lot at Penrose, Maine, because mom was undergoing cancer treatment in the hospital. And they were from out of town, and because they were both under 18, they ended up in county custody during her treatment. And had there been an adult who could have signed off on their staying at such a place as the John Zay House, which did not exist at that time, that would have saved that family a tremendous amount of heartache, and actually ultimately it would have saved El Paso County taxpayers some dollars as well.
There's a map on the wall in the hallway connecting the new one and the old one, and they've got push pins in there of where people are from that have stayed there. And of course, very concentrated in the Colorado area, but as far west as Nebraska and Kansas, and as far west as California and stuff.
Jerry, you mentioned it was a Colorado building. What's the name of the organization that was doing the work? Or Colorado building?
HBA Cares. That's Home Builder
Cares,
Association.
okay.
That's our non-profit.
Home Builder Association.
Yeah, that's
Cares,
our
okay,
agency
foundation.
that does that kind of
Okay,
stuff.
great.
So it's under the auspices of the home builders.
That's great.
Well, I just have one final thing. I just wanted to let you guys know, as with all of my differing name tags, I'm really excited. I've actually taken on a new client. For those of you who have been in the community a long time, you probably have heard the name Dr. Jeffrey Culp. So Dr. Culp has been around a long time as one of the best geriatric physicians we have. And I just arranged a relationship with them for just a few hours a month. Ralph, that's what I was going to talk to you about. Just a few hours a month, I'm going to actually do some outreach for their office. They sometimes, because they are so well known as the practice H. Well Medical Associates, the impression is that they are no longer taking new patients, and that's actually not the case. So, unfortunately, when you work in geriatrics, there's this thing called turnover. And so they are taking new patients, and they just want to make sure that people are aware of that. And so I have some postcards about them. If you know anyone, our seniors who are looking for a good physician's practice that's geriatric-based, then I have some information for you.
And actually, I have a community item, Dave. The Peak Military Care Network, which started years ago as the Military Impact Department at PPACG, is having their annual fundraising breakfast on Tuesday morning, November 7th at the Antlers Hotel. Dave is going. I know there are a couple of other people in this room who may be planning to attend, but if you have an invitation from somebody to sign up for that breakfast, sign up by the end of the day tomorrow, because they're putting all the tables together. I'm looking at you, Wendy Farr.
Oh, I know, I saw it.
And thank you in advance for anyone who plans to attend.
Anything else? Thank you very much. Do we have a motion to adjourn? And second, all those in favor? We are stand adjourned. We can sit adjourned, too.
I'm glad I can get up.
I always learn. I'm relieved you can get
Me
up.
too, actually, but I wasn't glad.
Oh, yes, he is an amazing physician. Now, he may not be taking new patients, but the practice, and one of the things I love about him is that he came up with the original model, like a medical home model, years before it started becoming popular. So he's the managing physician, and then he has, they have 4 right now, but they have room for 5 nurse practitioners.
Yeah.
And those nurse practitioners, they are their patients, and they are able to manage their own caseload, which is really a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Of course,
you've
but it
ever
has to come
had
out
a nurse
first.
practitioner.
And it's electronic.
Oh, really? Is she local?
Yeah, she started.
What?
Oh, okay. Okay, because he actually would love to take on it.
I can print it off for you and mail it, but how much, I mean,
Because
I can also-
that's their model is so wonderful that way.
got it. How many do you want?
Here's
What?
mine.
I can just mail it to you. But I have to wait till
And
it comes
that's
out.
why, so he's over, so if something really seriously was going on, he's gonna be consulted, obviously, but the whole idea is that those nurse practitioners have that flexibility to do it themselves, which is wonderful. I go to a nurse practitioner, and my mother goes to him too, so that's kind of that's a good sell as well. Yeah, and Marianne?
Nobody should have ever told her that. Our meetings are scheduled every month from 9 to 12. Every month.
Thank you all. See you next time.
Not from me.
Oh,
So she's
I
gone?
do my best. Falling is not allowed.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, I can still go.
Yeah, well, I hope so, because I didn't bring anything to eat, so.
I'm not just thinking
I left.
Center, Mastermind Center, and all of
Yeah. Can you believe it? Holy crap. Oh, and here you go.
it's now available, can be shared.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think everybody's waiting for that price to come down.
It's never going to come down because
Why not? It doesn't every other field of technology. I don't understand.
it's an essential. It's just like denture prices are never going to come down, and neither are eyeglasses.
That would be helpful.
Your site, everybody links in. Now you know how
covered for hearing aids.
It's, it could go that high.